Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Keeping You Company, a podcast where Rukamania and I discuss various topics which are interesting to us, in not only to keep each other company, but also to keep you company, whether you're doing some chores or have this on in the background while you're gaming or working or trying to get to sleep, or if you're just having a tough day or week and you need some company, then we're here for you, and hopefully you'll find our conversations interesting. Obviously, as I said, Rukamania is back with me. No real surprise there.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Scott Sword. It's good to be back.
Absolutely. Good to talk to you again. It's been a little while. We haven't really spoken much since the previous recording, I don't think. We've done a little bit of sort of text messages in between, but it's not like we've had any other additional conversations since.
Yeah. Not this time. I know we were feeling sort of optimistic when we ended the last recording. We were thinking, oh, maybe we'll get out an additional episode this month, and it very quickly got to the point where it was like, nope, I don't think this is a two podcast month,
No,
unfortunately.
wait. So the previous episode actually came out at the beginning of October. Gee, the time's flown by. Goodness sake. Okay, yeah. Yeah, you're right then if that's the case. Yeah. We just been busy with stuff, just work related, and then just other stuff going on. You got your translation, but I still need to watch your translation born. By the way, YouTube's been very bad to me. It did not put it on my homepage. I'm gonna have to ring your bell. I know this sounds a bit rude out
Oh,
of context.
oh
I'm gonna have to
no.
ring the bell. It's only when you
Yeah.
mentioned it in a message to me, I was like, oh crap, yeah, translation born's out. So I need to. I'll go and watch that very, very soon.
Yep, I made the deadline for this past month. The current deadline is the 14th of every month. I'm a little trepidatious about next month. I try to stay monthly as much as I can, but I inevitably fail at some point. So
Oh,
hopefully I don't have to push that particular deadline, but we'll see.
oh, this is even worse then. So not only have you got your translation born deadlines, but now we've got this podcast deadline as well.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't want to see your like Google Calendar or something. The scheduling that you're having to try and pull off here to make all this work.
Well, I'm a freelancer. I'm used to juggling deadlines. I got a lot
Okay.
of practice.
You got the time management nailed down to a T, no?
Yeah, absolutely. Something I've gotten good at over the years by necessity.
Nice. Oh well. If it works, it works, right? I don't
That's
know. I
right.
don't know if I have the same mental discipline for that, but something I might need to develop in due course. I should have developed more of it while I was studying, but you know what it's like when you're studying, right?
Oh yeah.
um,
Yep, absolutely. I know what it's like to just get heads down into something.
the background footage that you're seeing is from the flight when I flew back to Spain at the end of my summer break. So you see the takeoff from Edinburgh and then the landing into Barcelona. I apologize for the landing into Barcelona. When I filmed the bit in Edinburgh, because you can see that it's quite a rainy day in Edinburgh when we left. So in order for it so that you could actually see not just water droplets, which looks quite a cool effect on because I've got the phone pressed up against the window. It's got this nice effect with the sort of the droplets of rain. But in order for it to see like everything else in the background and not for it to be really out of focus, I had to do like the wide angle sort of setting on the camera. But then when we landed in Barcelona, I kept that wide angle setting on, and that means you don't really see the skyline of Barcelona very well. So that was entirely my fault. I'm really sorry. I'm not a photographer or a videographer in any stretch of the imagination. I'm sure by now you've all realised that. But you'll see
Well,
the
I've
trans.
enjoyed the footage on the past episodes because that's always a treat for me when the episodes actually come out, is I get to actually see what Scott Sword's talking about when he mentions these various videos and clips and things, and I've generally been very impressed with the footage.
Oh, that's very kind. Thank you guys. Yeah, for those of you who don't know, Rook doesn't see any of this. It's all on my side of the screen, so I'm not sharing this. So yeah, you see it all for the first time. Um, and I just to make it really clear, this is not this podcast is not like it's not sponsored by Ryanair, by the way. Other airlines are available. I was just
Yeah.
sitting over the wing, so that's why there's gonna be a lot of publicity for Ryanair during this podcast. Not that they need it. I don't know. Do you know about Ryanair?
I've heard about them through a friend of mine who lives in Canada. He did a European trip and he told me they're like Europe's budget airline. I don't know how accurate that is.
Yeah, there's a lot of budget airlines in Europe, to be fair. But yeah, Ryanair is like the budget of the budget airlines. Would be the they make you pay for everything. The base fee in theory is quite cheap, although the flights from Scotland to Spain now are just really really expensive, especially post pandemic. It's absolutely insane, relatively speaking, uh,
Mm.
compared to what they used to be. So I used to fly quite a lot. Back in back a few years ago. Um, but yeah, I mean they'll make you pay for every single tiny little thing, any additional thing,
Oh,
even just selection of seats. Yeah, you have to pay for that.
oh, wow.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. There's in the U.S. That's Spirit Air. They
Yep,
have the same approach.
I've heard about Spirit. Yeah,
Yep.
I mean to be fair, I mean they've been very successful with it. The budget sort of market in Europe, especially, I mean, I know the pandemic's kind of like disrupted lots of things, but there's a lot of budget airlines about, and they're making quite a lot of money out of it. Maybe now things are changing a little bit. Maybe people are going back to sort of the legacy. You call them like legacy carriers in the States, right? The sort of
That sounds right. I'm not entirely sure if that's industry or regular lingo, but
um,
that sounds accurate.
I'm thinking of companies like Lufthansa and BA and Iberia and Air France, like these big sort of national carriers.
Right.
They're maybe now doing slightly better post pandemic. I don't really know why, but something I should go and read because I do. I mean, I've said it in my other podcasts. I do like sort of. I'm interested in sort of you know how aircraft work in terms of like
Hmm.
technical stuff and pilots, and also just like how the sort of the economy works with them and things. So there you go. That's the footage for today. Um, Before we get into the main topic of the podcast, I don't know, was there any follow up or any sort of big news that we need to report on, which would be relevant for the viewers?
The one thing I can think of is I had a question for you based off of a comment that we got. I don't think it was the last episode. It might have been the one before. Something about the like way we recorded versus the way we released meant it sort of got a little bit buried. But I did notice someone was asking us to do a Room 101 thing, and I was
Oh,
very confused about what that meant.
okay. Right. So this is a real life friend of mine who's spotted this, and it was something that when I started the podcast on my own back at the beginning of the year, I did put out a message saying, "Does anybody want to have any topics they want to talk about?" And this friend of mine, uh, really good friend of mine, mentioned Room 101. So basically, maybe it's something you don't have in the States. So I don't think it exists anymore. It was a sort of British mm, comedy panel show. Is like the easy way to describe it. I didn't watch it very much, but I've mostly seen like clips on YouTube after the fact. I never watched it live
Okay.
on TV, but also after the fact. Basically, the way it works is you get normally three guests on, and they basically describe their pet peeves. Is the premise of the show, and then they
Okay.
have to convince the host that their pet peeve is more worthy to get put into room 101. And room 101 is basically like this kind of vault, and the thing gets locked inside it and it gets taken away from the world, basically.
Ah, okay.
So
So it's
normally,
like pet peeves, but with a twist.
it's sorry, I missed that. It's like what with a twist?
Pet peeves, but with a twist.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. It's you can imagine that comedy ensues because the minute that people start bringing in like slightly controversial things that maybe the audience might disagree with, or they have to argue their case and all this sort of thing.
Hmm.
Um. So yeah, and I think we've talked about kind of pet peeves have kind of randomly popped up in conversation
Yes.
during our episodes. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I know we had pet peeves as a topic, and they've come up in past episodes. But yeah, so that makes sense why someone would be asking for a show that's sort of focused on those pet peeves. Although I don't know if we could provide. We need more people on the show to really
Mhm.
recreate that format.
I guess if we did do it with two, maybe it could be a case of like if we suggest a certain number of pet peeves each and the other one has to decide like which pet peeve they like most agree with to get put into room 101 or something like that.
Yeah, that could be a good like variation. That could make sense.
um so yeah, something we can definitely look at. We have, I mean, to be fair, so yeah, to the person who commented, thank you very much. You know who you are. We've spoken privately about it, but yeah, pet peeves are on our list of things. But if we want to do something like that, where it's a little bit more kind of structured, we're going to have to try and think of maybe like say randomly, say 3 specific pet peeves that we're going to have to then try and convince the other person of. Especially if it's something that we end up. I don't know how much we're going to agree on our pet peeves. It'd be kind of more interesting if we end up disagreeing on our pet peeves. But I think the things that we've spoken about so far, we more or less have been in agreement with. So I don't know if
So far,
it might be the most like amicable Room 101 episode ever.
I kind of doubt that, but maybe.
We'll
Yeah,
have
I
to
agree.
see.
It doesn't make for the best entertainment when one person says something and the other person is just like, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I'll try and play devil's advocate or something. Or we can
Yeah,
get like
maybe.
we get Roscoe in here or something. He'll disagree with us. He'll have no issue with that.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Yeah, I
um.
could probably think of some pet peeves that would be somewhat controversial.
Oh.
It would be a different list than I would come up with if just prompted to come up with pet peeves. But if we're doing it specifically for an entertainment factor, I could maybe mix in some controversial ones.
Right. And then that's gonna be kind of interesting because we will have to also try to make them. We wouldn't be able to pick things necessarily extremely cultural because you might
Hmm.
say something that's a huge pet peeve about America or Americans or something, and I'll have no sort of connection with it because it's not something that maybe I would
I don't know
associate,
if
I
we can
would like
select. I don't.
identify with. Maybe
Yeah, I don't know if we can select for that or not.
I don't
Because if it's a
know.
pet peeve, if it's a pet peeve, it's a pet peeve. And then if the other person's like, "Yeah, we don't do that in my culture," you can be like, "You see, because your culture makes sense, right?" Or something like. I don't know.
We'll have to see. Yeah, so it's
Or the
definitely something that's
opposite.
on our list, and it was. But we can, if we want to structure it, we can sort of talk off camera about how we want to try and go about doing that. Um,
Yep, absolutely.
if anybody else is listening, and if you have other ideas of things you want us to talk about or discuss, then by all means leave them below, and we will see them and we'll add them to the list.
Indeed.
Um,
Scott Sword, do you have any announcements or big news or anything we should be talking about before we get into the episode?
well, I guess the only thing, because it's something that I did actually, I think I mentioned it on the podcast before, but if I had, it might have been when it was maybe just before you joined. Oh, I definitely remember talking about this while I was driving, but I can't remember what month it was. Well, anyway, it doesn't really matter. The important thing is, in the last, since we've recorded the last podcast, I have passed my driving test in Spain.
Hooray!
So I've passed it second attempt because I failed the first time. So yeah, thank goodness, got the theory done, and then now I've got the practical. So I am officially, yes, a licensed. Well, I haven't got the license yet. It will take up to 3 months to get to me, which is
Oh wow.
good to know that the Spanish, bureaucracy, and government is working at full full capacity. um, they're probably just short-staffed. But I can get like a provisional license in the meantime. So if I suddenly get pulled over for whatever reason, I can show them this piece of paper. Yeah, so that was it really. Nothing too exciting happened in the test. No, crazy incidents. Apart from stalling on approach to a roundabout because I didn't realize I was still in third gear. Everything else went fine. So
Oh, that's great.
I'll
That's
take
great.
that. It was just kind of a
Yeah.
funny. It was just kind of funny that moment though, because I was just having to concentrate on so many things because the entrance to the roundabout had there was a lot of traffic. I didn't want to get I didn't want to stop in the wrong place where I might have passed a red traffic light. I didn't want to block a pedestrian crossing, and then because the examiner told me the instruction of what exit I had to take, I then had to realize, right, okay, I've got to be really careful when I enter this roundabout because it's a very narrow exit, and I don't want to go too fast in case there's a car blocking me. Blah, blah. I was thinking of all these things. I was just still stuck in third gear because obviously it's manual. By the way, anybody who's watching this or listening to this in the states, most Europeans learn to drive manual cars. And we talked about that before, didn't we? We had that whole conversation about the US and Japanese and European sort of car market in
Right,
terms of
yeah.
manual and
It's
automatic.
very, very different in both the US and Japan. Although Japan, I think we brought up the fact that they have a separate sort of course for when you're
Right.
getting your license for manual as opposed to automatic. And even though most Japanese people don't drive manual cars, there's a relatively high proportion of test takers who test for the manual anyway, just so they can drive anything.
Right. It's the same here. I don't know. I haven't seen it in Spain, but I've seen it in the UK where you have automatic only like driving schools.
Hmm.
And yeah, I mean it makes sense, but then it just means that on your license you are unable to drive manual cars. You only be able to drive the automatic. Whereas with a manual, you can drive both. So it just for most people it makes sense just to get the license so you can drive everything. And then if you want
Hmm.
to switch to automatic, you can switch to automatic. How did you do it? I mean, yeah, you do know because we talked about you were driving around Japan, also in America. Did you learn to drive in an automatic, or at that time was it manual that you drove in?
I don't remember. I definitely know that I learned in an automatic. And
Okay,
I know that like my dad gave me some select like crash course lessons on like this is how you operate a manual, but I very quickly forgot all of them because I've never driven a manual in my life.
right, that's understandable.
So, yeah. So, I don't think that there was a separate like manual versus automatic only course when I was learning to drive, but there might have been and I just don't remember that because it was a long time ago.
Hmm. Okay, that's interesting because I
Yeah.
guess so. That's interesting. That's still even back then because I won't say your age, but a tiny bit older than me. But then it's interesting. Back then, it was still very sort of automatic heavy, like automatic focused in the states.
Yeah, the US has been primarily automatic for a long time. Like I don't think it was as like it's definitely increased in terms of less and less cars or fewer and fewer cars are manual these days, but like even back then it wasn't a huge proportion of cars that were manual. I think it was that back when I was taking the driving test, you could still find manual cars and ask for them and nobody would think twice about it. These days, I don't think anyone even really thinks about manual cars in the States. Then again, I'm not the
Hmm.
most social person.
Oh,
So,
well, unless you got like a classic like Mustang or something.
right. I think that's the primary use case is people who are like old-time car enthusiasts who are driving their classic cars around and they need to or they're like fancy sports cars if you get to the
Right.
like upper end of the spectrum in terms of wealth, right? Those are the people who are still holding down the automatic fort, and that's why it's less than 1% of new car sales because
Hmm.
none of the classic cars are going to register in the new car sales, and only the most expensive ones I feel like are the ones that people still want the manual version of.
Right. Right. The people who really love driving, quote unquote, will always go
Yes,
for the manual. That's
absolutely. Yeah, the
kind of.
people who really want to feel that control and have fun when they drive.
Hmm.
Oh, I just want to be bored. I don't want to think about it. I just want to go.
Was the opposite. My driving instructor was talking about it, and he was saying that the first time he ever had to drive automatic was in the States, and he had to drive, I don't know, like 9 hours along one of the eastern highways, and he just said to me, "God, it was so boring." Because it wasn't just the automatic, he could just put on cruise control,
Yeah.
and he was just sitting
Yep.
in one lane for 9 hours. Just all right, okay, I'm doing 60 miles an hour, 70 or whatever the speed limit was, and just like okay,
Yep.
I got nothing to do.
Yep. I wonder how long ago was this?
I don't know. The way he spoke about it, it wasn't that long ago, but also maybe not extremely recent, because also with pandemic and stuff.
Right.
So I don't know. I don't
Because
know
I'm
actually. I
thinking if
couldn't
it was a
answer.
long time ago, it could make sense to me that that would be incredibly difficult because your options for entertainment are so much more limited. But
Right.
like
No,
these
like
days, you've got your iPod, or listen to me, but your iPod, your iPhone.
you're speaking my
You
language, Aruk. You're speaking my
can
language. The
tell how
kids
old
these
I
days
am.
don't know what iPods are.
Yeah, you can have your iPhone hooked up to your entertainment system and play music or audiobooks or what have you, and just be entertained
Hmm.
for 9 hours at a go, right? So,
Right. Right.
because I've done like a 12-hour drive before, and I think like my brain turned to mush in an automatic, and I think I wouldn't have made it in a manual. I would have had to like turn off the road and take a break for the night because I just wouldn't have been able to bear the additional weight of like needing to follow directions and balance all the things I would need to do to drive the car.
With a manual.
Yeah.
Well, I guess
I
things like
feel like the I feel like the experience would be more active constantly, but my intuition, it could be wrong, but my intuition would be that activity would wear me down faster than the way I got worn down in the automatic. Because the way I got worn down in the automatic was not, oh boy, I'm so bored, and the boredom is like putting me to sleep, like because I know you can get like road hypnosis or whatever they call it.
Mhm.
Um, and that's really dragging me down. No, it was I'm enjoying listening to this audiobook, but I need to constantly be focused on the road and that constant attention,
Yeah.
especially at high speed, especially when I'm driving through cities and needing to work out, okay, there's like 12 different lanes now and all of them like half of them are going different places. Which one do I need to be in? And what do I do about the constant like blur of traffic all around me? That sort of mental load is what I feel like wore me down. And so if you add onto that needing to stay in gear all the time and just that extra layer, I feel like I wouldn't have made it as far. I feel like I would have had to stop earlier.
Interesting. Okay. Like I haven't
But I could
obviously.
be wrong. Maybe the engagement would keep me like active and therefore more able to cope with the longer journey. But that's not my intuition, and I don't particularly feel like testing it.
That's fair, especially after all this time not driving manual. I mean, obviously, I haven't done any trips yet, so I guess the test would be I'll have to go out on some road trips once we get a car, and I'll be able to let you know.
Yeah,
I do need to build up
I
my
was
stamina.
I was quite surprised that like because I know that when I was learning to drive, it was a severe challenge for like my focus, and I didn't like to drive for any period of time. And I the sort of reset after I went to Japan because like I got used to it and then I went to Japan and I didn't drive anything. Like I got an international license so that I could drive just in case, but I basically never used it. I literally think I never used it because I can't even think of a single occasion on which I was driving a car in Japan. I was always either getting driven around or like on a train or something or just walking. So like I just didn't drive for 5 years, and then I came back to the states and I had to relearn. Like I didn't have to pass a driver's test again because I was able to just keep renewing my license. But when I actually got back behind a car, it was like, oh right, this takes a lot of attention and is very draining. And I would go like on a half-hour drive and be like, wow, I feel way more drained after a half hour in a car at night as opposed to going out for a walk on a sidewalk in Japan for half an hour at night, like just going down to the local convenience store, which isn't a half hour, but I like to walk. So
Hmm.
I remember thinking, wow, what a difference in mental load it is driving as opposed to walking. And but then I got used to it again. And the
Hmm.
time we get to this like really long trip that I had to take, I was just like, well, what's so hard about like sitting in a car with cruise control listening to an audiobook for 10 hours? I can listen to an audiobook for 10 hours. That's not hard. And then I just like I was a zombie by the time I arrived at my destination. I had just enough energy to like walk in and fall asleep for 12 hours. I
I
could
mean,
barely function at like because I tried to make road stops because they tell you to break up long trips like that so that you don't
yeah.
get like sucked into the like road hypnosis or otherwise get over easily irritated or what have you. There's all sorts of issues that you can have if you just stay on the road for too long. So I was trying to like make several stops to break up the thing. And I remember I got to the last stop and I couldn't keep my attention on any one thing for more than like 5 seconds. And it was an exhausting state of mind to be in. I couldn't believe it. So, yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
It'd be interesting to compare that to your experience as you get used to driving for more regularly and for longer periods.
Right. Right. Because I think it's like as I was learning to drive, we always stayed inside the city.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, the place where I live is reasonably big, but not extremely big either. It's not like Barcelona. Barcelona would be horrendous to drive in. 'Cause it's just too much traffic, and it's just yeah, a lot of situations where there's lots of different lanes and things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the thing is, like, I find it was the opposite. I wanted to get onto like the highway, as you would call it, because I could just
Yeah.
put my foot down and I could be like, oh, good, I can just stay in sixth gear and just overtake a lorry every so often. Whereas inside the town, it's like, crap, first gear, right, then second, third, oh shit, I got to turn right here, right, down a gear, turn, oh, then back up a gear. And it's just, that's more mentally taxing for me. And I just hated it because it's just like so, the Spanish would call it like pesado, like really burdensome.
Mm-hmm.
and I would just be like itching, like, oh, just get onto the carriageway or the highway, just please, just for 5 minutes. And we'd go on. He'd be like, right, get up to 120 kilometers an hour, get into sixth gear, and I would. And then I'd be like, oh, this is really nice. And then literally the first exit that appears, right, turn off here. Oh, you gotta be kidding me! I want to drive.
Yeah, I actually feel like we're in agreement because I too find city driving to be terrifying and draining, right? It's just that even the relative ease of highway driving wore me down more than I expected.
right.
I think that was the point I was trying to make. But I
I
don't
think
disagree that it's more stressful when you're constantly dealing with city traffic.
yeah, and then also then pedestrians and making
Yeah,
sure you don't knock
pedestrians,
anybody over or
parked
whatever.
parked cars in
Ugh,
weird places. Yeah, like strange one-way lanes. Yeah, like weird intersections. Yeah, city driving is not fun.
no. And then just asshole drivers as well. The
Oh
stuff that
yeah.
I had to deal with, and it's like it's not like in the because it's weird in the UK you can actually learn like with your parent or another adult.
Hmm.
You don't. The law does not state you have to learn to drive with a qualified instructor. You can be in
Hmm.
the car with somebody who's had the license for X number of years, and then maybe as long as they haven't got many points on their license, I think it's fine. And you got the L plate to prove you're a learner and everything. In Spain, it's very much nope. The only person who can legally drive with you when you're learning to drive is a driving instructor who's fully qualified, no exceptions.
Wow.
So I always had to drive, and the company I went with has these bright yellow cars. So and with all
Hmm.
these L's all over it, so it's really obvious.
Yeah.
I'm not being inconspicuous in any stretch of the imagination. But I had people cutting me up. I stalled trying to make a left turn at one point because there was like then a raised pedestrian crossing in front, and I didn't get I lost too much speed and I went into the wrong gear and I stalled, and a guy behind me just cut behind me as I was trying to turn left, only to go into an underground garage literally 50 yards down the road. So all that
Wow.
impatience just for that. Um, I had it where I was sitting at a traffic light once, and the traffic light went green. And it's not as if I stalled or anything. I was just getting myself sorted, going to first gear, and I was
Hmm.
about to set off 1 second after the light went green, and a taxi behind me started honking the horn. And both myself and
Uh,
my teacher were just like, "Are you kidding me? Like, if I'd
yeah.
stalled 10 times, I would understand." But
Yeah.
firstly, you can see I'm a learner.
Hmm.
So it's not a surprise to you that I could potentially stall,
Right.
but also I didn't stall. I went off really smoothly.
Hmm.
Just people are just so impatient. I've kind of got into a bad habit of spending my free time watching dash cam footage
Oh wow.
from UK drivers. And a lot of them are listening to audiobooks and stuff when they're recording,
Hmm.
so it must be quite a typical thing now. But just seeing the absolute incompetence on the road,
Huh.
and like I don't think I'm an amazing driver. I've got
Yeah.
a lot to learn still and a lot of experience, but I'm not going to be doing anything ridiculously stupid. I don't want to put anyone's life at risk.
Right.
But just people are just so impatient for nothing, and you
Yeah.
catch them up at the next red light.
Yeah,
Oh
that's the thing,
man,
right? Is that because I tend to drive on the slower side and just regularly, and I don't have a learner's sign on my car. Which, by the way, the states is similar to how you described the UK, where it's like, yeah, you don't have to go to a licensed professional learning school like in order to get your license. You can be taught at home by your
hmm,
parents or what have you.
right,
But anyway, like I just like to drive slow and I try and stay out of people's way. Like I always stick to the right hand lane when I'm on the highway so that if anyone wants to, they can go past me. And I like am always of the mindset that, hey, if someone wants to go fast, they should get around me and I don't take any offense if they just like rev up as fast as they can. It's like, yep, go ahead, do your thing, buddy. um, but the funny thing is, like, you pay attention to those cars, and it's not like they frequently get away from you. You'll
no,
frequently catch up to them again at some point if they're going in a similar direction. It's like, oh yeah, nobody turned off to go to some different highway, or we both got off at the same exit and went to a similar like plaza to go shopping. And it's like, yeah, it's that same car that was zooming by me that just couldn't wait. My theory is that people just they have their own pace and they can't deal with the interruption of that pace. And so even if objectively you can measure it and be like, that didn't actually lose you any time, the feeling of being prevented from going at your ideal pace is just frustrating enough that it gets under people's skins.
I guess so. Yeah. And
Yeah.
they want the feeling of when they drive as fast as they possibly can, regardless of what, depending on the speed limit and such. And if that means they have to
Right.
brake really hard for that traffic light further up the road that you're just going to very calmly reach, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just progressively braking or whatever, then yeah, they want to go at that sort of way. Whereas I'm more
Right.
like, okay, I'd rather if I see a red light up ahead, I'll just calmly sort of cruise up to it. 'Cause you never know; it might turn green by the time I reach it. If I go really,
Yep.
really fast, I'm gonna have to slam on the brake, and then I'm gonna have to do all the shifting down and all that sort of stuff.
Oh yeah.
I
Yeah,
don't know.
the big
People.
advice that I got when I was learning to drive was look ahead, right?
Yeah,
The more, especially as a newer driver, you tend to look right in front of you. And the further you can look ahead and just adjust for things as they're happening and make everything like smooth everything out, the better of an experience you're going to have in the car. And I sort of internalized that. I feel like a lot of other people didn't. Maybe
clearly.
they, yeah, maybe they look ahead and they just don't care, right? I don't know, but like I said, I feel like different people have just sort of different natural paces that they feel comfortable with driving,
Right.
and sometimes that does accord with the speed limit. Sometimes it doesn't. Often there's like two roads in my local area where if you go down this one particular road, the way that the road is built, if you go the speed limit, it makes you feel like you're not moving at all. It's the most frustrating experience. I used to deliberately drive the speed limit down that road when no one was around because I don't like to inconvenience people. When no one was around, I used to try and like deliberately drive the speed limit down that road just to be like, why does it feel so weird to be going the speed limit on this road? And then I would go like, there's another road that's not even that far away. And the way that that road is constructed, if you go the speed limit, it feels like you're pushing your luck. It feels like you're
Right.
on the razor's edge of death as you
Mm-hmm.
like careen through like, and it comes down to like the road that makes it feels like you're going slow. It's a straight shot. It's very wide. All the houses are set far back. And so it looks like it creates this optical illusion of some kind, I think,
Mm.
uh, where you feel like you're going slower than you are because it's like built like a highway, except it's a local road. And
Right.
then on the other hand, you've got the other road where it feels like the speed limit is way too fast because it's really narrow and very twisty and turny. And so you'll like go around a corner, and if you're going the speed limit, you're gonna like go into the other lane and put your life at risk. And it's just like, wow, like just the construction of these roads influences my experience of driving so much. It's wild.
Yeah, and there's something that is from I've seen it more from like a city planning perspective, but yeah, the construction of the road really dictates the speed at which they set, but also the speed that you'll feel comfortable with. I've also noticed it when I have gone a little bit around the sort of the carriageways, and they call it in Spain the autovia, like the highway, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you get back into the city and the speed limit drops dramatically as you're entering
Yeah.
the city limit, and then even further in it'll drop even more. The brain does. I mean, my instructor explained it to me. There's something weird with the brain where if you have to slow down a lot after driving so quickly, after a certain after a certain period of time, you'll feel like you're not moving at all. You'll feel even
Right.
slower than it actually is because the brain
Mm-hmm.
can't perceive. Oh, you've gone so quickly the last half an hour. You're not
Right.
moving at all now.
It's
So
like it resets its perception of normal. Yeah, I know
right,
exactly what you
right,
mean.
right. Oh, the joys. So yeah, that's my only sort of big news in terms of there might have been people who were listening to the podcast for a while back who I think I must have mentioned I was learning to drive and obviously doing it in Spanish and stuff. So I've passed, so that's one less thing on my plate now. So yeah, you be careful now if you're if anyone's driving in Spain, you might suddenly see a crazy Scotsman driving past you. Just give me loads of space and time, and it'll be fine. I'll promise not to stall in front of you.
Well, congratulations on finally passing that driver's test.
Thanks, Will. It's been a long time coming. I mean, over here, not so much, but I'd been putting it off for years, right? Most people learn to
Mm.
drive, especially where I grew up. a more rural area of Scotland, most kids, as soon as they hit 17, they wanted to learn to drive to get a little bit of independence. But I was just like,
Yeah.
oh no, I'll study instead. I'll save my money for uni, and then uni went by, and then
Mm-hmm.
further education went by, and then pandemic went by. I was like, oh crap, I haven't
Mm.
learned to drive. I should really do it, and it makes it. I probably would have put it off even more if you. This is like life advice for anybody. If there's something in your life that you haven't done, you really should have done it, but you've been putting it off. Find a life partner, a wife or a husband, boyfriend, girlfriend, doesn't matter who it is, who will nag you to death about it, and then you'll get it done.
Amazing.
So thank you to Mrs. Scottsword for
Thank you,
nagging me.
Mrs. Scott Sword. Yeah, got him on the road.
Exactly. Finally. Yeah. Anywho, so without further ado, we should probably go into the main topic because the footage is already looped. So
Oh wow.
I don't know how many loops of the flight, the takeoff and landing people want to see. So we should probably get to the main topic. So maybe you should introduce it, Rook. What are we doing?
Okay, so I know I said in the last episode not to count on an American culture quiz, but guess what? We're doing an American culture quiz. Yay!
Oh wow! So you were really inspired, were you, Rook? After the quiz that
No.
we did last lesson or last lesson? What am I saying? Last podcast. There we go. Sorry, my teacher instinct just kicked in there for a second. I'm really sorry. The last podcast, you went away, and that very night you wrote a culture quiz.
No. This is mostly due to the efforts of YouTube user Snuffleupagus, who
Oh.
it is I don't know. I think he and Scott Sword are like they quiz brains or something because I was like, man, I don't know how I'm gonna do this. I think Snuffleupagus ended up contributing like between 2/3 and 3/4 of all the questions that are going to be on this quiz,
Oh
and
wow.
the remaining portion of the quiz that I had to do took me like a full day. So I don't know how Snuffleupagus like was like, yeah, I was listening to this podcast to the latest podcast, and I had some ideas. So for some questions. So why don't I send them your way? I was expecting, 4 or 5 questions. He sent me practically the entire quiz.
Wow. So
So
anyone who
this episode is dedicated to Snuffleupagus.
Absolutely. So anyone who doesn't know, Snuffleupagus is a member of the Fear of Jackalope community. So obviously knows both myself and Aruk. And is also now one of the admin alongside me in the community. As of when was that? March, April time, something like that. Before the Immortal update and everything was done. To the Fear of Jackalope. If you don't know Fear of Jackalope, that wouldn't mean anything to you. Never mind. He recently became admin and is now also competing alongside me. In the
Doing
League
quite
of
well
Jackalope.
too.
Indeed, he is. Yes, absolutely. Has got on the longest winning streak in the league, 8 wins on the trot during the sort of
Wow.
middle portion of the league phase. So yeah, doing very well. So yep, very much a very active member of the Fear of Jackalope community. So I was quite surprised when you suddenly said that to me. I was like, goodness me, did he have like that quiz on standby or something, or he just, I don't know.
I wish I knew. I think it's because you I don't know how long it took you to make your British culture quiz, but you were like, yeah, it's done. Like they're
Yeah.
like, yeah, this is a potential topic, and then I feel like it felt like a week or two went by. It was probably months because that's the way time works now. But you like all of a sudden messaged me and were like, oh yeah, it's done. We can do it for the next episode. I was like, what, really? I thought like I saw it on the list and I thought, yeah, okay, maybe in a few years. And then nope, it was done. So I feel like, yeah, and you told me, right? You were like, yeah, I like to come up with quizzes. I think it's fun. I think Snuffleupagus has some sort of similar wavelength where he was just like, oh, it's fun. I've got all these questions. I'll just write them down and send them to Aruk. I was like, all right, well, I'll take them.
Oh, well, thank you, Snuff, for that. Or maybe not. If I don't get any of the questions right, then maybe I should be saying thanks. We'll have to see. I've been really good, I must
We'll see.
admit, since.
I'm curious. I don't have like a strict list of which questions were come up with by which person, but I will like if it were possible to do that. Maybe I should have color coded them. But if it were possible to do that, I'd be curious how many like were me like stumping you out of like sheer mistakes or giving you like easy questions as opposed to Snuffleupagus'
Hmm.
contributions. I wonder how our relative standings would turn out.
Oh, well, we'll have to see. I mean, Snuffle, no.
'Cause
Snuffle
that
might.
was another thing. I had such a hard time dialing in what was the appropriate difficulty of question. So I feel like right with the leading questions. The leading questions are all me. Like right away, you're
Oh,
gonna get a taste for how hard how hard of a time I had trying to be like, what's the right balance?
oh no. Oh goodness. Okay, we'll have to find out then.
hopefully, hopefully it's in your favor because I remember your quiz was very kind to me. So I'm gonna try. I tried to make this quiz kind to you.
If
Well,
it's not, if I do really badly at this, then that will just be my go-to excuse that you just
yeah, it'll be
pitched
my
it at the
fault.
wrong level.
It'll be my fault. Absolutely.
I'm only joking. I was just saying, since we did the last podcast, I kind of knew that Snuff had sent this thing to you. Oh, Snuff didn't tell me; it all came from you, by the way. Um, but I've been really good. I've researched nothing. There has been moments where it's popped in my brain going, "Oh, is he going to ask that question?" But I haven't researched
Mm.
anything. In the live stream that we did for Fear of Dracula last night, obviously by the time you see this, it won't be last night, but never mind. The night before recording this podcast, we ended up having a little bit of a sports conversation. Um,
Ooh.
I don't know if that will help me. I don't know if it'll be relevant, but we ended up.
Maybe it will. Maybe it will. Sports is a topic.
Oh goodness. Okay, I dread to think. Okay, well, we'll get into it, and I'm ready to embarrass myself in front of all of YouTube, so that's fine.
Okay, so I will ask the same thing that you asked of me before we started your quiz, which is you have a prediction for what your score will end up being. It's out of
What?
50 points.
Oh, same. Okay. Well, should I just pitch it at the same number as you did? It was 18, I
Yeah,
think you went.
if you want. Yeah, I was not very optimistic. So, yeah,
Oh,
set yourself the same bar, 18.
18, or do I round it up to a nice even 20, so nice even
Well, it's
40%?
up to you.
Oh, sod it. Let's do 20 out of 50. Let's go for a solid 40%. Because
All right.
from UK standards, a 40% would be the boundary between pass or fail. Well, it depends on what type of exam it is. So I'll just set my sights really low, and if I do well, I'll be really happy about it. If not,
Awesome.
then I'll be saying, see, I told you I knew nothing about America.
Yeah. All right. Well, here we go. So I'm going to open with some lead-in questions,
Oh
and then
no.
I will tell you, I will give you the slate of options for your various topics.
Okay, that's fine.
So, first question. The United States is made up of 50 states, but its capital city is not part of any of them, nor is it a state itself. For
Hmm.
1 point, what is the name of the US capital?
As in the city or the area that it occupies. Well, the city is
I'll give
Washington
you,
D.C.
yep, I'll
And
give you a bonus point if you can tell me what the DC stands for.
I believe it stands for District of Columbia.
You are correct. So that is
Yay!
a bonus point right out the get-go. Very good.
Woohoo! Is that factored into the 50 points?
No, no, the
Oh,
perfect score, it's true bonus point. So the perfect score will be 54 out of 50.
oh, wow.
Yep.
Can you imagine that? I got 110%, or whatever that would be in the test.
Yeah.
108%. How can you get 108% in a test? No, I doubt it. Okay, I'm happy with that. That's a nice start off question.
Excellent. Okay. The follow up to that, the full name of Washington, D.C. is Washington District of Columbia, as you said. For a point, who or what is Columbia?
Um, I have a intuitive guess, but I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if that's the only thing I can think of that is any kind of related to Colombo or something. That pronunciation would be Christopher Columbus.
Mm-hmm.
So is it just because they named it after him? I
That
don't know
is
why it'd be.
correct.
Oh, it is. Okay, good. Okay.
Yes. So it is Columbia is a female personification of the United States. It was frequently used as a way in Britain. Well, I looked this up for the sake of the quiz to get more detail, but it over time it's had different usages. But in the period when Columbia was most in usage in the U.S. and the U.K., it was mostly used to refer to like the British colonies. Um, and
Ah.
it does come from the name of Christopher Columbus. This was Columbia, the land of Christopher Columbus, right?
Ah.
So that's where that comes from.
Okay. All
And
right. That's.
that particular female personification sort of fell out of favor after the Statue of Liberty and Lady Liberty sort of came in. I think around
Ah.
World War I was when the popular consciousness started to shift.
Interesting. Okay, good to know.
Yep.
And
All
they've
right.
also
So,
just about Christopher Columbus. I don't know if you saw it. Hasn't there been a thing recently where they've actually been able to like verify like Christopher Columbus's like nationality and ethnic, uh, like didn't they've like proven recently that he's definitely was Spanish.
oh no, I had no idea about any of this. I'm
No,
not keeping up with modern news about Christopher Columbus.
well, I'm sure I saw that recently, or maybe I
You're
might have been
probably right. You're
tricked by.
probably right. I'm just out of the loop.
I'm just gonna say that just for culture in the sort of close to the seaside part of Barcelona, there is a very very tall statue of Christopher Columbus
Oh,
pointing
interesting.
towards. Well, I hope he is. Otherwise, he's pointing in the wrong direction. He's pointing towards the Americas.
Yeah, well,
So
he
there you
was famously funded by the Spanish,
go.
so
He was by Isabella.
yeah.
Yep.
Hmm.
So there you go.
Perfect. All right. Well, you're doing great so far. So
It's not the
the
last.
third lead-in question here before I open the quiz up to you. Before the completion of Washington, D.C. in 1800, there were several other places that more briefly served as capitals of the United States. For a point, name any of them.
Oh. Oh. I'm trying to think. Has this come up? Because I've watched quite a lot of like oversimplified history videos. I'm trying to think when Washington became the capital. I'm trying to think
Hmm.
some of the other cities that they've mentioned. Oh no. And now the problem is I got names going through my head, but I don't know if they are states or cities.
Well, I'll give you a clue. One of the answers, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. So it's the
Yeah,
same.
because the
It's
city and the state share the same name.
um the only one I can think of off the top of my head where the state and the city are the same name is New York. I,
Correct.
was New York one of the capitals?
New
I
York was the capital for it was the first capital under the U.S. Constitution. It was the last capital under the Articles of Confederation, if I remember the articles I was reading correctly. Sort of straddled the
oh.
transition.
If
And
I
the
oh, there you go.
go ahead.
I was gonna say if you hadn't given me a clue, the other one I would have probably tried to guess maybe was Boston.
Boston was not ever capital of the United States. So
Oh, okay.
I could
Interesting.
see it. It makes sense as a guess, but it is not on the list. There turns out there were 8 of them. I only knew about New York, right? If I was taking this quiz for myself, I would have gotten New York because I knew that New York City was once the capital before they moved it to Washington, D.C. There was
Okay.
actually an interim capital, and actually not just an interim between New York and the move to Washington, D.C., but also at several other points before. This Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, multiple
Philadelphia.
times was
Right.
the capital of the United States.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah.
so that's the other like main one.
Yeah.
But Baltimore, Maryland, Lancaster, Pennsylvania, Yorktown, Pennsylvania, Princeton, New Jersey, Annapolis, Maryland, and Trenton, New Jersey were all capitals of the United States at one point.
Oh, okay.
Lancaster was literally just for a day on a technicality. So I wouldn't
Wow.
have expected you to get that one. It's because the in the progress of the Revolutionary War, the American Revolutionary War, they had to move the capital around because the British troops were getting too close.
Right. Okay. I think I've seen the oversimplified video about that war, and I was trying to think now. So out of the list that you've given me, the two that I probably should have gone were Baltimore and you said Philadelphia, right?
Yes.
Yeah, they were the two that, in hindsight, I would have probably I should have got them before. I didn't even realize New York was one of them. Those two I definitely remember seeing in the history videos, so I'm kind of gutted I didn't get those.
Well, I'll
But
still give you the point.
oh, thank you very much. Thank you for the clue.
Yeah. Like I said, it's one of those ones where I was like, is that one too hard for someone outside the US? Because I feel like some people in the US don't know New York was once the capital. And then I looked it up and I was like, oh, there's 7 more I didn't know about. So, yeah. And if you had guessed Philadelphia, right, like you would have been right, and I wouldn't have known that prior to my researching this quiz. So that would have been interesting.
I was just trying to think of like any sort of like really big settlement on the East Coast.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think. Then I'm remembering that video. I'm not that I've watched it recently, but about the the Revolutionary War of Independence, where I'm trying to think of all the big settlements that they were fighting over.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I now I'm remembering them talking about Baltimore and Philadelphia. The others, Yorktown, I think I've heard of. Um,
Mm-hmm.
that might have come up maybe in Age of Empires because they did have a part of that was about that war. But the others, that for me, Lancaster is a place in the north of England.
Yeah.
Oh
Yep,
well,
it's rural Pennsylvania these days. Okay.
there you go.
Anyway, we have so in terms of the like so now you have opened up the rest of the quiz. Congratulations.
Hey,
Um, so now you can choose your topics. We
okay,
have sports, we have geography slash general knowledge, we
okay,
have history slash civics, we
oh, okay,
have entertainment,
all right.
we have place name, food or drink or slang.
Oh no, I wonder where you got that
Yeah.
from.
I wonder. Definitions, and then general trivia.
Oh, okay. Oh, so I guess it's kind of in the same boat as you. Like, do I pick a topic that I would feel naturally confident in to try and get some points on the board? But then if that goes badly, that bodes really poorly for the rest of the quiz. Or do I go for a subject that I don't know if I'm going to do well on, and then I can just get better from then?
That's the
um,
question.
I feel like I'd probably need the confidence boost today. So let's go for geography and general knowledge,
All right.
and
So,
watch this go downhill, folks.
oh well, we'll find out. First question. So there are 12 points available.
Oh goodness.
In no small part because this first question has the potential to score you a lot of points.
Oh no.
So,
Okay.
five of the world's largest lakes are in the United States and are appropriately known as the Great Lakes.
Oh no.
For
The
1 point each, name the Great Lakes.
Oh, I should have known you're gonna ask this. Okay, right.
Four of these five are on the US Canada border and
Yeah.
shared between both countries, while one is entirely within the US. And you get a bonus point if you can correctly identify which Great Lake is entirely within the US.
Right, let's see if I can name the lakes first. That's challenge number one. So there's
Right.
Lake Superior.
Yep.
Lake Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. I think one of them is also called Ontario. I think. That's
That is correct.
three. Now I'm
Yep, that's
struggling.
three.
Now I'm struggling because that's three of the five, and now I'm struggling.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, hmm.
Yeah, the other two aren't like I feel like similar to you, though you've named the ones that I find easy to remember.
Hmm.
There's one more that I find somewhat easy to remember, and I don't mind giving you clues. The one of the that you haven't named that I sort of key in on, it makes me think of. I remember it because it's spooky. I don't know if that clue will help you.
Hmm. Not if we're thinking on the same wavelength
Yeah,
of
maybe not.
spooky. I'm trying to also think in terms of I don't know if they are if any of others are named after states which are nearby. I'm trying to think. Hmm. No. Hmm. I'm thinking of other lakes, but they're nowhere near there.
Yep.
That's just not. That's the wrong part of the world. I'm thinking even further north than that. I'm thinking like northern Canada. Oh man, this is knowledge I have, but I used to have, but it's just gone out of my
Mm-hmm.
brain. I'm gonna have to
That's
pass
frustrating.
because I can't think of what the other two are. As soon as you say them, it'll
Okay,
it'll fall into place.
sure. But all right, so you've named three. One of the ones that you have named it fits the bonus criteria. All right, would you like to take a guess as to which one that is?
Oh, and the bonus is that they it fits entirely inside. The US.
Correct.
Um. Okay. I will do a bit of sort of deductive work here. I don't know the answer, but I'll do a bit of deductive work. That
Mm-hmm.
if it's called Lake Ontario, I'm going to guess it borders Canada. Otherwise, that doesn't make a huge amount of sense. And if it's called Lake Superior, it's the biggest one, I assume, based upon the name. If it's not, that's a terrible name. So that one would be more likely to straddle the border between the two countries. So I'm just going to make the assumption that Lake Michigan is the one that is entirely inside the US.
And that is correct. Well reasoned. Well deduced. Yeah, the other two lakes are Lake Huron and Lake Erie.
Lake Huron, how is Huron being spelled?
Huron.
Oh, I had it in my head as well. Oh man. I thought
Uh,
that was further north. Oh, that's awful. I knew that from like Age of Empires again. A lot of my American knowledge comes from Age of Empires. Oh, I thought that was even further north. Oh, goodness. Oh, missed out a point. Sorry, so Lake Huron, and what was the other one?
Lake Erie. That's the one I was trying to give you the hint for
Ah,
with
right.
spooky.
Yeah, good
Yeah.
clue. Good clue. But I just wasn't. I was never going to get the word eerie. I wasn't going to pop into my
Yep.
brain. Good clue.
That's all right. Okay. Well, you got 4 out of 5 points thanks to the bonus.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So let's move on to the next question. America's highest point is the peak of a mountain in the state of Alaska. In 1917, the US government officially named this mountain after a US president, but in 2015, the government changed the official name to reflect a name given to it by indigenous Alaskans in the area. For a point, name either one of the names of this mountain.
Oh, well, that's bad.
Highest
I
peak in the United States.
Right. I had an idea in my head, but the name I have is neither an indigenous name and neither is it named after a president.
Uh-oh.
So it's not that, and I think the one I'm thinking of is just purely volcano. It's not the highest peak.
Okay.
Um, in 2015 it got changed.
Yep.
Damn. So that's the sort of thing I'd be interested in if it popped up in the news, but I must have missed that. That doesn't ring a bell at all. I can't think I can. I don't know if I can name any of the I don't think I can name any mountains in Alaska, let alone the highest peak. I'm trying to think of. I'm trying to think of U.S. mountains in general, let alone the highest peak.
Yeah, it's fine.
Uh, the only one I've got in
I
my head, I don't
I
even know if
feel
it's in Alaska now. I've got Mount Helen. Isn't it Helena or Helena in my head? But that's not even potentially that's not even in Alaska, is it?
I don't know if it's in Alaska or not, but it's not the answer I'm looking for.
That's fine.
Yep.
It wasn't named after a president, so it's clearly not that one.
Right.
So I'll pass.
All right. So the answer we would have accepted either Mount McKinley, which is the old name, or Denali,
Nah, doesn't
which
neither
is
of them ring a
the
bell.
current name. Yeah. Well, you destroyed me with the question on mountains on your quiz, so I feel like we're even.
You return the favor. That's fine.
Yep. Okay. Next question. America's largest river system has a drainage basin that spans 31 states and 2 Canadian provinces. Rain as far as northwest as Alberta, Canada, or as far northeast as New York, all flows through this river system through the city of New Orleans,
Okay.
where it then flows out into the Gulf of Mexico. What is the name of this river system?
Ooh. Okay. Mississippi.
Absolutely. Got that one.
Yay. It also because of the state, but yeah, there's like a major sort of choke point during the I can't remember what it's called now. Oh, that's awful. Um, oh goodness. The American Civil War. There we go. Trying to get the words
Ah,
in my brain.
yes.
Right.
Yes, absolutely it was. Yeah. Good knowledge. I'm impressed. All right. So continuing on with geography,
Mm-hmm.
Old Faithful is a well-known geyser in a prominent American national park that faithfully erupts a large volume water and steam into the air every 44 minutes. Where is Old Faithful located? We'll accept either the name of the national park or the state.
Oh, I might be able to do both for you, and I'm putting a lot
Ooh.
of pressure. The national park, I believe, and let's see if I can get the pronunciation right, because this is a word I did not know how to pronounce, seemingly.
Mm.
Yosemite.
Okay.
I first learned that word as Yosemite or something like that. It's only when I heard like Yosemite Sam from Looney Tunes that I suddenly realized, oh, I've been pronouncing that wrong all my life. And the state, isn't it in one of the Dakotas? I think it might be in South Dakota, but I might be wrong on that. I think the national park I've got right. I think it's Yosemite, so I'm going with that.
I have bad news for you.
Oh no.
It's actually in Yellowstone National Park in Wyoming.
Oh, so what's Yosemite? Yosemite is another
Yosemite
national park,
is a
right?
national park, and you are now pronouncing it correctly.
Yay!
That
I'll take
is
that.
not where, yeah, that is not where Old Faithful is located.
Oh, okay. Oh well,
Oh well.
that's fine. Yellowstone, not Yosemite. Cool. Good to know. Again, that's probably something that I would have come across, but I've just mixed the two up. That's fine.
Okay. So, traveling back to a place we've sort of been to before, America's largest city, New York City, was formed by the union of five boroughs. Can you name one of the five boroughs? And if you get all five, you get a bonus point.
Oh, nice. Okay. Manhattan.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So Manhattan, Queens,
Yep.
Brooklyn,
Mm-hmm.
Harlem. Oh, what's the last one? Um, am I missing like the least obvious one?
Yeah, you're missing one that people tend to forget is in New York to begin with.
Ah,
I read a whole book. It's this weird sci-fi concept where different avatars of the different five boroughs of New York like awaken as people, and one of the main, I don't know about main points of the book. It factors into the plot point is that this is one particular borough that people always forget about when they think of New York.
oh no. I want the bonus point, but I can't. I don't know if I'm ever gonna get it. I'm trying to think of now any clues I could use to get it. I'm trying to think of like airports or any airports named after it. But I think the airports I'm thinking of are in New Jersey and not in New York. Um, any other New York related stuff I can think of? The only thing I can think of is Albany, but that's a different place. That's not in New York City. That's a different city completely, further
Yep.
west, I think. Um, hmm. No, I could sit here for an hour and I won't be able to work out. I mean, if you tell me, I might know it, but I doubt it.
Okay. Yeah. So the five are Manhattan, which you got, the Bronx, yep, Queens, right? Brooklyn, not Harlem, and Staten Island.
Oh,
Staten
Staten
Island was the
Island,
one
because
that you
where
weren't thinking of.
Statue of
Yep.
Liberty is, right?
Yep. Well, it's in the it's on the way to Staten Island. It's on its own
Oh, it's
island.
further. Oh, it's further out though.
Yeah, I think they call it
Ah,
Liberty
okay.
Island or something like that with the Statue of Liberty. But yeah,
Ah, right. Okay. Um, is it? So what's Harlem then? If that's not one of them.
I think it's just its own subsection of New York.
Ah,
I'm gonna
okay.
look this up. I don't like. This is the ironic thing. This is one of Stuff's questions. I don't actually have that much knowledge about New York.
Cause I.
Harlem is a neighborhood in Upper Manhattan.
Ah, okay. Right. Okay. Oh well, I wouldn't have got it anyway, even if I did remember Staten. I do know Staten Island, right? The fact you said it, but
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then the
Just couldn't
Bronx
think of
I've
it in the
heard of
moment.
as well, right?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but
Staten
yeah.
Island is the character in the book that I was talking about that's sort of like apart from the others, and it's a major plot point as to whether or not they're going to be able to. All of the avatars of the city are going to be able to get and actually work together or not.
Okay.
She's sort of the one who's aside and doing her own thing.
Oh. Okay. So
Yep.
I did know all the names, but just I got one, so that's fine. I'll take it.
Yep. You get the point. You, it's just the bonus you missed out on, so that's fine.
That's all right. No problem.
All right. So, oh, this one should be interesting. I've modified this one
Oh
from
no.
Snuff's original. So, the United States Census Bureau divides the country into four major regions. the Northeast, the Midwest, the South, and the West. For half a point each, can you name one state in each region?
Right, can you repeat the regions for me? South, west.
And then the Northeast and the Midwest.
So northeast, midwest, south, west.
Correct.
Because I'm gonna have to name the state and then also the region it's in. So I might get
No,
a.
well, no, just the states.
Hmm.
It'd be helpful for you, I think, if you could name the region, but I'm only going to ask you for the states.
Okay. Well, I'll just go with Texas as being the southern state, since it's like the most iconic southern state, I'd assume.
Okay. Yep.
Northeast, anywhere kind of New England way, I'd assume. So something, well, even New York would probably do the trick, I'd imagine.
It will.
Midwest. Right, okay. So I'm trying to work out how far west you have to go to become the Midwest. I'm thinking of states like Tennessee and Kentucky. Are they far enough west to count? I'm trying to work out if I go further west, because then you've got states like Kansas. Is Kansas still Midwest, or would that count as west? I am gonna say I'll play it safe. I think Kansas still counts as Midwest. I'm gonna say Kansas for. Or would that be still? Oh, is that South though? No,
I
it
will
can't
resolve
be
your
because
I will resolve your doubt. Kansas is
northeast
Midwest.
Kansas is Midwest.
Yeah.
I'm thinking northeast. Then south must be like from the Carolinas across. Then I would
Mm-hmm.
assume. So
Yep.
then west, pick something on the Pacific coast. I could say California, but that's boring.
There you go.
Or I'll say Oregon just to be different. But you said California is fine. But I'll say Oregon
Okay.
just to
I
show
take
off.
any of them. All 2 points. Well done.
Whew, okay.
Okay. All right. And last question. In addition to the 50 US states, the country has 5 inhabited territories. Name any one of these territories.
Oh. I had ideas, but the problem is now you're saying inhabited territory. I don't know if the thing I'm thinking of is an inhabited territory. But I guess it's not a country in its own right. So
Hmm.
it has to be what you would call an inhabited territory. Only 5. Let me think. I'm just gonna quickly run through my head. I can definitely think of 2, but now I'm wondering
Ooh.
if one of them doesn't count as inhabited territory, but counts as like an overseas, like colony military base. The two that I'm
Okay.
thinking of are Puerto Rico and Guam.
Those are both correct.
Oh yes.
Yep.
Can I think of any of the others? Probably not. No, I'm gonna stop. I can't think of any more.
Okay. Yeah, well, you got the point. The other 3 are American Samoa, the
Okay, sure.
Northern Mariana Islands, and the United States Virgin Islands.
Okay, makes sense, especially with two of them. They got the name US or American in the name. American Samoa, yeah, I should probably would have worked out eventually, but that would take me. That's even closer to sort of towards Australia way. That'll take me a long time to make my way over there. No, Guam's not too far away from there though, relatively speaking. Oh well, I got the point. I'm happy.
You did. Yep, well done. Yeah, you got
Oof.
8 out of those 12. So you're still in a very strong position after totally acing
Oof.
the lead in.
Oof. Okay. Well, we'll take it. I've still got to get 9 more points, I think. So no guarantees at all. Uh, let's go for definitions
Okay.
next.
Yeah, let me know if you want me to give you the categories again.
Oh, I wrote them
Um,
down. Don't you worry.
okay, perfect. Okay, so I'm going to give you a word. Please give me a definition. Word
Okay.
number 1, crapshoot.
Oh, people use it in the Dracula community all the time. Isn't a crapshoot kind of like a gamble of some sort?
Yes,
Okay.
that is correct. It's a risky move. It comes from a game called Craps, where you have to roll the dice, and it's basically all luck.
As in
So you,
CRAP.
yes, you have to try like it's been a long time since I was in Guys and Dolls, where Craps is like the main. It's a musical where Craps is like the main thing that they're all these gamblers are looking to play. And depending on when you roll a 7 or an 11, it's either very good or very bad.
Oh.
Yeah.
I'm none the wiser. I'm shrugging. I know you can't see me, but I'm shrugging. I've got none the wiser. The only thing I'm thinking of is that's quite a funny name for a game for a
Hmm.
British person. Because you know what crap is in British English, right?
Yes. Well, it's probably the same in American English. It's another,
Oh,
you
well
know,
then.
euphemism for excrement. Yeah, it's a
Hmm.
funny name for a game. Yeah.
Well, I'll take it. I think actually, where I should give the point to Warecraft. I think it was Warecraft was the first person who used that in front of me, so I learned it from him. So thank
Nice.
you, Warecraft. If you're listening to this, I don't know if you would be, but if you are, thank you.
Yep. Okay. All right. Next word, grifter.
um, just making sure that is the right word. That's a word that's become pretty, maybe has an older meaning, but has become really common nowadays, especially
Yeah, it's
with
blown up.
internet.
Like I
Yeah.
said, I tried to make this a Scott Sword friendly quiz.
Hmm. So a grifter, how what can I translate that? I'd maybe translate it as something like a snake oil salesman, someone who is trying to like trick people into like giving them money with some sort of scam scheme or something along those
Yep.
lines.
Yep. Nailed it. Yep. I have as a definition: a grifter might be a pickpocket, a crooked gambler, a scammer, or a confidence man. So pretty wide swath of definitions there.
Hmm. Cool.
Okay. Next word is moxie.
Moxie, how are you spelling that? With an X in the middle.
Yes, with an X. Moxie.
Oh, IE. Moxie. Ah.
This one's a little bit regional to me, I think. So might
Hmm.
not know this one.
I'm trying to put it in some sort of context for myself to try and work out what it would be.
I like that
Okay.
guy's moxie.
Oh, like their style in terms
Close.
of maybe like I'm trying to think.
It's
Would it
not,
be
to be fair, that's not a very illustrative example of the definition. It's just probably the most common way it's used.
their? I'll say style. I mean, I'll keep the answer with style, but like their appearance, like how they dress and how they physically act.
Okay. It's more tied to how they act. It's courage, daring, and energy.
Oh, okay,
So that guy's got a lot of spunk. He's got a lot of moxie. Like if I wanted to give away the definition, that's an example I could have used. Um,
okay. I didn't. I don't think I got that. I don't think that
no,
my
I'm
definition
not
was
gonna.
close
I'm not
enough.
gonna give you that one.
No, rightly
I,
so.
I did give you a bad clue, but
No,
you
it's fine.
didn't know the word either. So
I didn't know the word, so it's fine.
okay. Next one. I'm curious about this because I looked up a bunch of these, the like words that are used in American English that aren't very common in or used in British English. This
Oh,
one came up and I couldn't believe it. So I'll be curious about your answer. Royal. Roil.
Roil.
Yep.
Royal.
Yes.
What is that? I have no idea. I've never heard of that word. I mean, royal, sure, but with a Y and an A.
Wow. Okay.
Royal, never, never.
The information was legit. Okay.
No, haven't got a clue what that means. I wouldn't even like to guess. I don't even know where I'd start with that.
Things
Um,
getting all roiled up.
oh, like fiery.
Pretty close. Yeah, pretty close. I don't think I'm gonna give it to you. It's comes from originally to make turbid by stirring up the sediment or dregs of, and from there it got to stir up, and from there it got to make agitated or angry. So kind of like rile up, you get
Oh,
roiled up.
that's what we would say. We'd say rile up, not royal up.
Interesting.
That
Okay.
would be our way. Because as soon as you said, I was like, you're thinking of rile up then. Okay, okay, okay. Well, I had no idea that you did it as yeah, you had this other version of rile up as royal. No, that was
Okay.
absolutely a new one on me.
All right. I am intrigued by that because I feel like it's so close to like both broil and rile that you
Hmm.
had to have it, but I guess not.
No.
All right. Anyway, last word. Shuck. This one has a couple different definitions. I'll take any of them.
Uh, I've always, well, I'm trying to think. I've always heard of shuck with an S at the end. Like, oh, shucks.
That's one of the senses that I will accept.
I'm trying to think how I would describe that. Um, oh, shucks. When you're like a little, I'm trying to think. Would embarrassment be a good enough description for that? No, not really. Because again, this is a phrase I've kind of heard. I've never used. I've heard it. So I'm trying to think of the context I've heard it, and then try and work out from there. I'm trying to think of another meaning. Isn't a shuck also like a fool, like a silly person as well? Oh, so no, because you said that you accept shucks. So I'm now trying to work out how I
Mm-hmm.
describe that to you. Shucks. Right, this would be my answer. I don't know if it's right, but is it another way of kind of saying, "Oh, what a pity"?
Yeah, I would accept that. I'm going to give you the point for that one. So the original meaning is the shell. Well, it's a shell or a husk, and from that, as a noun, it came to mean something of little value, which led to the expression that ain't worth shucks. Right? It's not even worth the outer cast-off shell or
Ah,
whatever. Specifically, it's like the outer part of like corn on the cob. Um,
right.
it's the shuck. And so that's not even worth the stuff that we throw away from corn on the cob, right? So it's not worth anything. And then when you say, "ah, shucks," it's an expression of just like general dismay, right?
Hmm.
Like, "oh, what a shame, what a pity," right? So I'll
Right.
accept that.
Okay.
The other sense that I would have accepted is its use as a verb, because it's shucking corn is taking off the shuck from the corn on the cob. Or
Ah, right. Okay.
in the US, we'll also talk about shucking oysters.
Oh, so
So
you
it can
take
mean
the oyster out
to
of the shell.
strip, yeah, to strip or peel off, like you're taking off the shell.
I'm trying to think what we would use for that then. Not that it's vocabulary I use every day. You must understand.
Yeah,
uh, I don't know what we must. I don't know what word we use for taking oysters out of the shell. I'm gonna have to look that up now. But I didn't. I didn't know. Again, it might be something I might have heard, but it didn't go into my brain. But if you'd asked me just, oh, what is a shuck? Or if you
mm-hmm.
asked me as a verb, what does it mean if a person is shucking? So I have no idea to do with the outside of the corn on the cob. So if it wasn't for the "or shucks" expression, yeah, I would have had
Right.
no clue.
Well, that's the one I felt like you would have heard. It's such a it's such a common expression that I feel like even across the pond, you've probably heard someone say, "Oh, shucks."
Right, but it's not. It's an expression that I've always heard in media. I've never heard a British person say it. At least
Mm-hmm.
for me, anyway.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
that
something
makes sense.
I've learned from media, not from people saying it.
Cool. All right. Well, that concludes our definitions category. You've gotten 3 out of 5 points, which isn't bad at all.
Ooh, okay, I'll take it. Where now? All right, let's go for a subject that I'm gonna almost guarantee to get zero in. Let's go for history and civics, and we'll just get it out of the way, and then we'll forget about it. Pretend it never
Okay.
happened.
Right. We'll see what happens here. Like the UK Parliament, America's national legislature, the Congress, is split into two houses. One is the House of Representatives, and the other is the Senate. Name one important difference between the House of Representatives and the Senate. And some of these answers I might have to look up. There are some that I have in mind, and that Snuff, because this is another Snuff question, that Snuff provided for me, but there's a wide potential range of answers. So depending on
Oh
what you
my
say, I might need to look it up.
goodness. Um, a difference between the House of Representatives and the Senate.
Yep.
Oh. Hmm. 'Cause unlike the UK, I can't use the UK answer and say that one is elected and the other one isn't because your both houses are elected. It's not like in
Yep.
the
They're both
UK where
elected.
the lords in the UK are unelected, so that's not going to work. Um, hmm. The problem is the answer I'm thinking of is going to be incredibly vague.
Oh, that's fine.
Is it something to do with the how can I describe this easily? And I'm trying to think of this on the spot as well. So is it not? I might not be able to. I might not even understand my own answer. Is it something to do with the the amount of area that whatever the representative, the senator or the member of the House of Representatives, like how much area they cover within inside their certain state, or is one of them at the state level and the other one is more local?
You're closer with you're thinking on the area, although it's not to do with land.
So it have to be population then if it's not land
Exactly.
area. But then I'm trying to then work out which one would
Hmm.
have to cover the larger area.
Right.
Because
Which,
the
if you
problem is
think about the names, you get the House
right,
of Representatives, and you've got the
and the
Senate.
Senate. If you use the word representative, I would
Hmm.
make the assumption that they represent more, so more at the local level, whereas maybe senators are maybe state only, I say with question marks. That would be my guess. So I would assume then there must be more representatives than senators.
That's exactly the answer I was looking for.
Oof, okay, that took
There's
a lot of logical steps to get there.
there's more, yeah, there's more members of the House of Representatives than there are the Senate. So the way it works is the number of people who appear both represent the state, but one way of representing the state has to do with the state's population. So you get a certain number of members of the House of Representatives depending on your state's population. Bigger states have more representatives than smaller states, population wise. In the Senate, every single state has 2 senators.
Oh, okay. Can I ask, is the number of representatives tied to the electoral college, or is it different?
I don't know how they relate to the Electoral College. I
Because I know
imagine I
I
imagine it's different just because it's complicated.
right, okay. Because I know when you do the whole presidential election, you've got the electorates from each
Right.
state with its own number
Yeah,
of
the
votes.
electorates are the people who actually cast the votes, and that's also based off of population. I just
Yeah,
don't know if it's based off of the same calculations as are used for the House of Representatives.
right. Because I know with the electoral college, there's some kind of funky maths that goes behind it that's based upon population, but the lower population states have proportionally more votes than
Hmm.
states like California or New York. So I'd be interested if the House of Representatives is by the same system or if it's purely like a lot more closely tied to population.
I'm
Um,
curious about that too. Let's see. House of Representatives. Sorry, everybody on the podcast. I'm looking this up live on the air.
you're getting the first-hand information though.
That's true.
We don't have to put any edits then either.
Yeah, maybe. Let's see. Of the current 538 electors, simple majority of two. Okay. What is the Electoral College? 538 electors. Why is this not? House of Representatives is set at 435 seats, which means they cannot be related.
No, because that's about 100 plus fewer. Right. Okay.
Yep.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, that was my intuition, is that our system is so complex and convoluted that I didn't think they were absolutely tied to one another. So
It'd be
yeah, go
pretty
figure.
crazy if it was the case, right? Or you'd have
Yeah.
purely like the representatives casting the vote, not the electors or the electoral college representatives. But anyway, okay,
Yeah.
that's all right.
Okay. So anyway, the important thing is you got a point.
Yay!
Yay. All right. Now I got to get to the right category in my answer sheet here. Good. Okay. Next question. Unlike the UK, the United States government is organized under a written constitution comprised of 7 articles and 27 amendments, which grants certain powers to the federal government and reserves certain rights to the American people. Can you name one right guaranteed to the American people in the Constitution? You get bonus points for identifying what amendment the right is covered by.
Um, I do know one.
Hmm.
But now I'm trying to work out which amendment it is. 'Cause I don't want to look silly. Uh, isn't it
Well,
the
that's just
second?
a bonus.
I
Go
think
ahead.
it's the Second Amendment. Isn't that
Hmm.
the well? Oh, now how? Oh, what's the exact wording of that amendment? It's the
I feel
one
like
to
you were
do
about to say
with.
it.
Is the one to do with gun laws? Is it something just like the right to bear arms? Is that
Exactly.
good? Is that
Yep.
good enough?
Yep. That's good enough. That's exactly what I have on my answer sheet here. Snuff provided it, and I was like, yeah, I nodded my head sagely. That's right. So yeah, 2 points for you right there.
I don't know. Goodness, I don't even know if there would be any other amendments I could name, honestly. That's the one that's the most famous, especially coming from like the European perspective, because it's something that's so
Hmm.
different to how our society works.
Yep.
Um,
The one that gets touted a lot in the States has to do with the First Amendment. I don't know if you're familiar with that one. I feel like that's another potential one that you might know about in Britain,
I
but I
mean,
don't really know.
would that be to do with like the pure liberty or something? Liberty of the people?
Yes.
Given it.
Well, we call it freedom of speech, press. It's a catch-all, right? This is the thing about the First Amendment. It's freedom of speech, press, religion, peaceable assembly, and the freedom to petition the government for redress of grievances. So calling it
Okay.
the general freedom one, I think, sort of makes sense. There's a
Because
lot
that.
wrapped up into it. We
Right.
we
That's.
tend to think of it in terms of freedom of speech, but yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, because like it's one of like the things you most associate with the the American ideal, right? Is the idea
Mm-hmm.
of liberty and freedom. So it makes sense that'd be the one at the top of the list.
Yep.
So I will not try to name any others because I don't know.
That's fine.
um,
I only asked you for one, and you got the amendment and the particular right, so you get 2 points. Okay. Moving on. America is known for its religious diversity. Which religion, once referred to by Leo Tolstoy as the quintessential American religion, was founded in the United States on the belief that ancient Jews sailed to America and established Christianity here long before Europeans ever arrived?
religion founded in the U.S.
That's right. I don't know if you've read the first Sherlock Holmes book, but this particular religion plays a part in
Ah,
that.
don't say that because I probably have read it. Well, I have read one Sherlock Holmes novel, but it's the one where it's like a lot. I mean, maybe a lot of them are like the collection of short stories.
Oh yeah, yeah. Sherlock
Uh,
Holmes is mostly short stories. It's only a few novels.
oh, it's the one where you've got oh, sorry. There's one of the stories about the orange peels, and there's others in there. Oh, I read it years ago. My wife gifted it to me. Oh, I'm trying to think of religions which potentially started in the States. None of these are
Yep.
my official answer. I'm just throwing them out there. I
Sure.
know the well, what we call the Mormons are what's it called? The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. That was founded, I think, is it Salt Lake City? That's where that's from. Or at least that's where it's based now, anyway. Are
Hmm.
Jehovah's Witnesses American? Possibly. I'm also then thinking, oh, it can't be. Oh, now I can't remember what they're called. Oh, the Amish. I think they're. I don't know if there's any Amish over here. I think we're normally associated with them with America as well.
Hmm.
So I don't even know if Jehovah's Witnesses are American. So my only reasonable guess would be between the Mormon religion and then the Amish. And I don't even know if either of them are the correct answer. Um, I'll take a guess and say that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter Day Saints, the Mormons. I don't know if it's correct, but it's the only
It
one I can
is
think of.
correct.
Oh my goodness!
You nailed
This
it.
is goodness sake. I had no idea. It's only because it's the one that I think of the most prominent. But I
Yeah.
didn't know that was their belief system. I didn't know that was a thing.
Hmm.
Oh
Well done. Well done.
goodness.
Yep, in the Sherlock Holmes story, I thought it was super interesting because, like I was saying, most of the Sherlock Holmes stories are short stories and they're not often novels.
Right.
And I remember because I've a couple of times read through like a collection of all of the Sherlock Holmes stories, and it always surprises me when I get to a novel how most of the time Sir Arthur Conan Doyle like writes a novel for Sherlock Holmes as if it's a short story size mystery, and then he puts something in the middle to fill up the rest of the novel space, basically. And so the first Sherlock Holmes novel, Sherlock Holmes has this case and he solves it in like the first 2 pages or something like that. And then the actual mystery, like, continues for Dr. Watson for a little while. And then Sherlock Holmes is like, okay, I'm going to tell you the whole story of this. And he's like, in the United States, on their journey west, the Mormons ran into this difficulty, and he gives this whole history of like Mormonism in the United States, from the fictional perspective of a character, and then talks about how it relates to this murder in England. And in the last like couple pages, he was like, "And I knew all this from the beginning," and I was just like, "Wow, so you just
Wow.
dressed up a short story? That's interesting." So
I
that's
mean,
why I happen to remember that particular bit of info. Go ahead.
I was trying to look up what the actual story was.
Oh yeah, that'd be a good thing to do.
I've looked up.
Scarlet.
I study in Scarlet. Yeah.
That's what it was. Yeah, Scarlet. I knew Scarlet was in the name. I was going to say Scarlet Letter, but that's definitely wrong. That's John Hawthorne. So American
No.
literature, totally
But
wrong.
then it says it's followed by the sign of four. Now that one I think I've read.
Okay.
I think that rings a bell. Um, I know I've got one Sherlock Holmes book, but I don't know if it's in
Yeah.
that one. And also, I've seen my wife and her parents are a huge fan of the adaptation done with Jeremy Brett. Um,
Hmm,
but I don't know if a study in, I mean, they must have done, I assume they would have done an adaptation of Study in Scarlet, but I don't remember it.
hmm.
So I'm gonna have to go back to Sherlock Holmes. I do remember spending one summer going on the bus to work every morning reading that. And it was good. So I need to get back into that.
Yeah, I like Sherlock Holmes. The thing is, they all run together for me. I have a very hard time
Um,
keeping them straight. I'd be like, didn't this happen in this one Sherlock Holmes story? And then I'll be like reading it. I'll be like, oh yeah, that's this one. Yeah, the
oh,
only title I actually remember is The Hound of the Baskervilles.
of course. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I do remember there's one about orange peels, and then a sign of four.
Yep.
There's also
Hmm.
another one which I've never read, but I saw it in the TV series about the Redhead Society. And there's a
Oh
man who's
right,
employed for a job because of his amazing red hair.
right. I remember that one. Yeah.
Yeah,
And the fun
yeah.
thing about Sherlock Holmes stories is they're not all murders, right?
No.
Like a lot of the modern detective genre, like it's just evolved to the point where when you're talking about a mystery, it's a murder mystery, like 9 times out of 10. It's all to do with murders. Arthur Conan Doyle is before that became like codified into the genre, and so he'll just be like, "Oh yeah, Sherlock Holmes solves this case of theft.
Yeah.
He solves this other thing." And I think
Or
the
corruption
red-haired
or something like
league.
that.
I
Yes.
think the red-headed league is the one where he's like being used as a front for a robbery of some kind.
Yes. Yeah. It's something along those lines. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that too. That there's that variety in there.
Yep. But anyway, you've done quite well on history and civics so far.
I'm very
Racked up
surprised.
3 points for yourself.
Ooh.
So let's move on. Which former president of the United States was also a popular Hollywood actor? Most prominent role was in Bedtime for Bonzo, where he played Peter Boyd, a college professor who adopts a baby chimpanzee and raises it as his own child.
Is this? No. 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 I was thinking of something, and that's not it.
Okay.
Um. There was a very famous question on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire in the States about a US president, and I don't know if it
Mm-hmm.
was referring to that.
Oh, okay. Probably not. The main question is basically which U.S. president was also a popular Hollywood
Hollywood
actor.
actor.
Like that's the heart of the question.
Right.
The specifics of the movie he was famous for are just sort of fun trivia, which I think is really funny. Now that snuff, that's another snuff question. I read that and I was like, really? That's the synopsis of the movie? It's pretty funny.
I'm trying to think. It can't. So obviously the Hollywood relative to the. I don't have to think about a really really old president because obviously Hollywood was not
No,
a thing. But at the same
right.
time, it's not an extremely recent president.
Correct.
So it's got to be that middle period, which is the worst period for me, because at least the older presidents, I would like to think I know some of them because of like
Mm-hmm.
Civil War and War of Independence, all that stuff, and then the modern
Right.
ones are in my lifetime.
Yep.
But that period, and now I'm thinking of names, but I don't know if they're presidents.
Hmm.
And I'm thinking of others, but they're like I'm thinking like Wilson. No, he was a wartime president, so I don't think it could be that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm now thinking I've got the word Ford in my head, but that's like the car manufacturer. I don't think there was a president. Was there a president called Was it Gerald Ford? Is that a president?
Yes, there was a Gerald Ford. That
Oh,
is
there
not
was a
the
Gerald.
answer.
It's not the answer.
Yeah.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
No.
Or at least he was a president. That's all right.
Yeah.
Oh goodness. Oh, I think. Wow, I know because a lot of the presidents like during the war were all like previous like generals and they were in the military. I don't think they'd be Hollywood. That's the problem.
Yep.
Oh man. If I even know the answer when you say it, will be a miracle. I don't know the answer off the top of my head, so I'd be
Okay.
plucking just random names, so I'm gonna
All right.
pass.
I will tell you that the answer was Ronald Reagan.
Really?
Yep.
He was in Hollywood? No.
He was a Hollywood actor.
Oh, that's way more recent than I thought it would be.
Yeah.
Goodness, I had no idea.
Yeah, I thought about giving you the clue of the 1980s, but then I was like, if you ask an American who's a famous actor who became president, they'll tell you the answer.
I had no idea he was a Hollywood actor. I've
That's so
seen
funny. That's like one of the few things I know about him.
Goodness. I mean, I've seen like little things about. Maybe I did hear it. There's a really good YouTuber called I'm gonna get his name wrong now. JJ McCulloch, I think that's his name. A
Hmm.
Canadian guy, but he does a lot of sort of educational videos about U.S. presidents and history and stuff. And he did do like a series where he did talk about the presidents around that time period. So I'm gonna have to go back now and watch that video and see if he mentioned that about Reagan. But if he did say it, that did not stick in my head clearly, which is a stupid thing because that's a great thing to remember.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah, that's
um,
pretty wild.
I no, I would I was thinking way before Reagan because I was thinking of maybe
Interesting.
like classic Hollywood maybe as somehow a president like
Mm.
snuck in or something. I never would have guessed Reagan. So no, I wouldn't have got
Okay.
that. I was thinking way too early.
Interesting. Good to know. Well, you're still doing pretty well. So let's go on. Next question. America's national anthem was written by Francis Scott Key in 1814 and features lyrics describing what Key observed as he watched British forces bombard Fort McHenry in an attempt to capture the city of Baltimore, Maryland during the War of 1812. What is the name of America's national anthem?
I knew you were gonna ask this. I had like this moment like 3 or 4 hours ago. I was like, he's gonna ask me what the name of the anthem is, and I've got a name in my head,
Okay.
but now I promise I don't know if it is the anthem,
Ooh.
and I've got to make sure I get the name right. Is it? The song I've got in my head is Star Spangled Banner.
You are correct.
Whoa.
That's great. That's great. You've
Goodness.
only missed 1 point here. That's awesome.
Goodness. I'll take it. I'll run with it.
Yep.
Is that the end of history and civics?
That is the end of history and civics. You've gotten a
Oh,
4 out of 5.
thank goodness. Okay, I'll go with another bad one for me and say entertainment. And then
Okay.
hopefully the rest will be okay. But I have very little confidence.
All right. Well, here we go.
Okay.
What American comedy sitcom set in Scranton, Pennsylvania, a regional branch of a larger fictional paper company, was based on a British show of the same name and
Ah,
proved to be so popular here that it lasted for 7 more seasons and 187 more episodes than the British original?
I hate to admit it to people, I've seen neither the UK or the US version of The Office.
Hey, I haven't either.
Hey!
That was a snuff question.
I've seen the memes, obviously. I've seen some memes. I know the characters, like their kind of iconic moments, but I've never seen an episode of either. So there you
Yeah,
go.
I feel like you know more than me because I didn't even know the memes. Uh, but well done.
Thank you.
Yeah, I figured we'd give you one that was at least some. Well, I figured. I looked at Snuff's answer, question and answer, and was like, I figure that's a good one because it ties
Yeah.
in British TV.
Yeah, and to be fair, Snuff knows quite a bit about British TV. We talk about it sometimes. So yeah, I was not surprised that that sort of question would come from him.
Aha. Okay, next question. Which famous American LGBT person founded an eponymous drag race reality TV franchise in which drag queens compete in a variety of singing, dancing, acting, fashion, and comedy challenges?
There's only one drag queen I know, and I
Hmm.
hope they're American. Is it RuPaul?
Correct. I know less about this show than I know about The Office, but I do know the
Don't.
name RuPaul's Drag Race, so I would have gotten this question right, so I figured you would too.
There you go. I think it's just one of those things that's just so like out in the open, right? And everyone
Hmm.
talks about it. That it's just kind of hard to avoid it. So there you
Yeah,
go. Not
absolutely.
that I've
It's one
watched
of
an
those.
episode of it either.
Yeah,
Just yeah. I think
yeah.
it's impossible not to
That's
notice it.
that's what I think a lot of these questions boil down to. It's just like what's unavoidable about
Right,
American culture, American
right.
entertainment.
I'll take it. 202 so
Okay,
far. I'll take it.
yeah, doing great. Next question. What American singer-songwriter who rose to prominence in the 1990s girl group Destiny's Child
Ah,
released an album earlier this year called Cowboy Carter that was inspired by her Houston, Texas roots?
I think I know that. I've just got to make sure I don't embarrass myself and say a name that is completely wrong. Isn't that Beyonce?
That is correct.
Oh yes. Wow.
Another aspect of American culture I know basically nothing about.
Yeah, don't you worry. I mean, it's one of these things. You would have heard her songs at some point, but I would never be able
Yeah,
to
oh yeah.
identify them had they popped
I'm
up.
sure. Yeah, I'm sure I've heard her songs. She's super famous. So I just, yeah, it's we're in a similar boat, I feel. All right, now's the interesting point because that's Snuff's questions on entertainment, which you've aced, and now we get to put my questions to the test.
Oh no.
I hope
Let's
these
see.
aren't this one I thought might be a little bit tricky, so I've got some clues that I'll give you for free. So
Okay.
the concept of the great American novel has played a significant role in the history of US literature, and there are a handful of books that are often discussed as fitting the criteria of those that paint the American soul. Can you name any of these books? There's a wide variety of answers. I have clues available for four works traditionally associated with the term.
Well, I've heard about the term Great American Novel, so that's a good start. Um,
Yes.
Again, it's going to be one of these questions where if you start listing books, not that I would have read any of them. I
Mm.
don't think I've ever read a Great American Novel. I can think of one
All
that
right.
might be a Great American Novel, but I don't know because I'm the problem I'm thinking of is what is the time period that a book would have had been released to count as a Great American Novel. I've got one in my head, but I don't know if I want to say it.
Okay. I'm guessing my first clue, if your mind works like mine, which it might not, but if it does, I'm guessing my first clue might give you a little bit of confidence. And these clues are free, so I'll give you the first one.
Okay.
It is a book based in part on the tragedy of the whale ship Essex and concerns the whaling industry.
Ah, I that was not the one I was speaking of just now, but when you were saying the question, that one also popped into my head. I think, but I also then
Aha.
didn't. I don't even know if that is actually the book, but also then I was trying to work out was that American or not. I didn't know if it was British, so
There
I
we
had a
go.
lot of doubts. I
When you
think
said
I
you
know.
weren't sure about the time period, that's one of the earliest ones on the list. So,
Again, I hope that is the one I'm. I hope we're thinking on the same. But you're saying Wales, so I'm
yeah, I'm saying
hoping.
Wales.
Are you gonna give me other clues, or should I say the novel I think for that clue?
Go ahead and say what you think I'm hinting at.
Are you talking about Moby Dick?
I am talking about Moby Dick by Herman
Ooh.
Melville.
Okay.
It was
I
the tragedy of the whale ship Essex was is a ship that was based out of Nantucket, Massachusetts, and Herman Melville lived there for a while and did research into that, and that was where he is said to have drawn a lot of his inspiration for Moby Dick.
Oh, okay. Fascinating. I had no idea. I must admit, as you were saying the question initially, that popped into my
Mm-hmm.
head, but I would have had a lot of doubt that that was an American novel.
Yeah,
I didn't know
it's
if it was
just
British or not.
right. You think of it as just a timeless, like placeless, like classic of literature.
Yeah,
But
not
yeah,
necessarily that it's tied to a
right.
certain, but it makes sense if you're talking about a very specific tragedy, then that would make that. It's good that you gave me the clue because if I just used the word Essex, I would associate that a lot with because there's an Essex which is a region of the UK. I wouldn't have
Ah,
associated it with America at all. I'd find it quite strange that there was a boat called Essex in Europe, but then I guess it depends when what's the period that it's set in?
oh, I
Was
think
it
it's the 1800s. I'm so bad at time frames.
okay? So that's post independence then.
Yeah, whale ship Essex. Let's look this up. I'm too early by or too late by like a year. It was launched in 1799. Oh well, the tragedy was 1820. So I wasn't. I was right. It was the 1800s.
Right, but the important thing is it's post independence.
Yes.
Okay, I would have found that very strange if you gave me like yeah. Okay, thankfully it was whaling. If you just said the tragedy or the sinking or whatever of a boat Essex, I would have
Yeah.
been probably
Well,
quite
I knew.
confused.
I was giving you a clue. I had to use the word whale for Moby Dick somewhere.
Of course.
Yeah.
Thank goodness. Okay. Um, do
All
you want
right.
to go through?
What was the other? What was the other book you were thinking of?
Well, the other like classic American novel that I can think of, but I don't know if it would
Hmm.
count as a great American novel, would be To Kill a Mockingbird.
I would accept that. That was not on my list of answers to give clues to, but I would accept it.
Okay,
Yeah,
grand.
I think that absolutely counts as a book that could be the great American novel. Yeah, it's popularly actually when I was making this list, it was funny because I wasn't sure which ones to give clues to and which ones not to, and I
Hmm.
ultimately I was on Wikipedia and like I looked up like To Kill a Mockingbird. First I looked up Great American Novel and I got one list. Then I went to Wikipedia and it was like this is the history of the concept of the Great American Novel and these are the works that are like most closely associated with it. And I was like, oh okay, so I'll do clues for those four. But the list that I looked up initially had To Kill a Mockingbird and The Invisible Man, which were not part of the list that I found on the Wikipedia entry for a great American novel. And I mean, it's a concept that's sort of it's important to American literature, not just in and of itself, but also because people keep interrogating that concept. So there are a lot of works that some people might not connect with or consider to be in the running that others might, and then the question starts to be like, well, what even counts as a great American novel? And you like Moby Dick, that feels like a classic of world literature, right? Like I was saying before, is that really American? Is it capturing the essence of what it is to be American, or is it universal, right? So it's that sort of debate and literary questioning is part of what makes it so important to American literature, I think, because you get different ways of challenging it at the same time as you get other ways to reinforce it.
I've got kind of two things. I've got another one in my head. I want to run it
Okay,
by you and see. Would The
sure.
Great Gatsby also count?
Yes. Yes, that would be my pick, by the way. If I had to pick one book to be the great American novel, that would be my pick.
Okay.
I
So
uh, I can understand people who disagree with it because it's the reason it would be my pick is because it's sort of local to my area. It's set in Long Island, which isn't that
mhm,
far from me. It's not where I live, but it's not far from me, and it's
right.
all about like wealth and class in the Jazz Age. And I'm not from the Jazz Age, but wealth and class is sort of the like most relevant thing to the part of the country where I live. So it comes the closest to capturing like my experience of American life. And so that's
Right.
why for me, I would go, yeah, The Great Gatsby. That's the great American novel.
Right. It's the thing that you're drawn to in terms
Right.
of right. Um. Okay, that kind of follows up. That was going to be my follow-up question because you're talking about the American ideals. Is there a very sort of set list of parameters that a book has to
No, no, not
themes
at
that has to
all.
discuss, or it's just very kind of vague?
No, it's very vague. It's,
Okay.
I mean, so the whole thing got started out with an essay by this guy in the 1800s, I think, who was talking about like there needs to be an American literature that is uniquely American and what constitutes American. And he had his own list, but I don't think that ever really got like fully accepted and codified. I think there are some things that you can say, right? If it doesn't deal with race and race relations, is it really American? Um, I don't know if it doesn't deal with like wealth and class. Is it really American? Is it right? So there are some things that you can point to. If it doesn't deal with questions of like uh, the American dream, like looking to get rich and have this idealized life, um, is it really a great American theme, right? So there are some lists of themes that you could come up with that I think a lot of people would agree with, but there's no like set standard. Like
Right.
these are the notes you must hit to be considered one of the great American novels.
Okay. That seems fair. I'm kind of interested because you said you had four books or novels you were potentially willing to give me clues for. One of which was Moby Dick. Can we go
Yep.
through the
So I
others?
gave
'Cause I'd be
you,
interested to
yep,
see.
I gave you the
Not
clue
not
for
that I've
Moby
not
Dick.
not that I've read any of them, by the way. The closest I've come
Sure.
out of all the ones we've mentioned uh, was in what we have to talk about school system at some point as another topic, but what we in
Yeah.
Scotland call hires, which is exams you sit when you're normally 17 or 18, and they're kind of
Mm-hmm.
like the pre-university level exams. In English class, where there's maybe I think there are 4 or 5 English classes in my year group.
Mm-hmm.
All the other classes studied To Kill a Mockingbird as the novel that
Ah.
they then studied in the for to write essays in the exam and such. Not my
Mm-hmm.
class. I had a different teacher who was a huge fan of Thomas Hardy. So we had to read The Mayor of Casterbridge, the only sort of
Okay.
really classic novel I've ever read, apart from I've started reading Dracula a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, everybody else read To Kill a Mockingbird and then watched the film as well in class. Whereas us, no, we had to study the 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 rise and downfall of Michael Henchard and all the
Wow.
stuff with. I still remember the bloody characters' names. That's how much it got soaked into my brain. But just
Wow.
try to imagine, like, I mean, she was a lovely teacher. I got nothing against
Mm-hmm.
her at all. But imagine her trying to teach a class of maybe like 30 apathetic or like, yeah, 25 apathetic 16, 17 year olds, trying to get them interested in like classic, English literature. And she'd be
Yeah.
like pouring her heart out reading
Yeah.
all this thing about Michael Henchard and just be like, don't you feel sorry for him? And all of us are just like, no.
Yeah.
But hey, all these years later, I can still tell you that it's Henchard and Farfrey, and I think the daughter's called Elizabeth and all that stuff. So yeah, yeah.
Yeah. That's amazing.
So there you go. I'm interested to know if I know the others. So we've got Moby Dick.
Okay.
Let's see.
Yeah, so Moby Dick, you heard my clue for that. I'll give you all the clues I was going to give you anyway. The next clue I had was for The Great Gatsby,
Okay.
focusing on issues of wealth and class in the Jazz Age. This book is named for its newly rich central figure, popular at the start of the novel for his extravagant parties, which
I
not
don't
as
know.
obvious a clue as the whale ship for Moby Dick. But
Right.
if you knew the synopsis of The Great Gatsby, I figured me summarizing the start of it might give you an idea.
I was quite fortunate that I once had to set my students a task where they could write about any book or like a little write a review about any book or film or TV series that they
Hmm.
wanted, and one of them wrote about the book and the film of The Great Gatsby and the adaptation between the two. So
Ah.
only because I've not read the book nor seen the film. I know Leonardo DiCaprio's in the film. That's all I know, but
Well, it
I only
depends
know the
on which film you're
synopsis.
talking about. That's the modern film.
Oh, the modern,
there's
sure,
an
right.
there's an older one. Yeah.
I think the only one I know, then the author is it Fitzgerald? Is the author?
Yes, F. Scott Fitzgerald. Yes.
That's it. I know nothing. All my knowledge of The Great Gatsby came from that one review that a student wrote for me once. So that's it.
Amazing.
I know nothing else.
Well, it doesn't matter where you get the knowledge from, as long as you
Just
know it.
as long as you know it.
Yep. The next clue, I'll just give you the clues to see if you can guess. This book follows its eponymous main character as he fakes his own death and runs away with an escaped slave. Give you the author too, because you've already got the point. It's by Mark Twain.
Oh yeah, heard of Mark Twain. Uh, no. Based on the synopsis, I've got no idea. Again, I might have heard of it, but based on the synopsis, I've got no idea.
Okay, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn.
Yes, heard of it, but I wouldn't have got it
Yep.
in a million years. So,
And then the last one, also made into a movie that, when adjusted for inflation, is still the highest grossing film of all time. This book is famous for its depiction of the American South during the Civil War and Reconstruction era.
oh, I didn't realize there was a book. Interesting. Is that Gone with the Wind?
Correct.
Ooh, I had no idea it was a book first. My wife's probably told me. If my wife listens to this, she'll kill me because she loves that film and she wants me to sit down and watch it at some point when I've got about a fortnight free to watch it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a
It's
long
quite
one. I haven't
a
seen the
long one.
movie or read the book myself. I've only read half. I've read The Great Gatsby and I've read Moby Dick. So I've only read half of the like ones that I listed. Um, and then I have read To Kill a Mockingbird and I have read The Invisible Man, and those were the two main bonus ones. I'm sure there are others that I could have found if I kept looking, that I was willing to accept. But yeah, I've got my own reading list to sort of fill out there.
Nice. Well, thanks for the clues.
Okay, yeah. Well, we're that brings us to the last question in entertainment.
Okay.
Here we go. The US played a prominent role in the history of movies and famously broadcasts an award show to recognize various aspects of filmmaking known as the Oscars.
Hmm.
In the history of those awards, three movies are currently tied for the highest number of awards: Ben-Hur, Titanic, and The Return of the King. How many awards did each movie win? And this is a multiple choice question. So your options are 7, 11, 15, or 19.
Oof. So all the options 7, 11, 15, and 19.
Correct.
Hmm.
Most Oscars by a single film.
Um, I'll guess 11.
You are correct.
Okay. Wouldn't
I
have known
thought
without
I'd,
the options. No chance. I don't know
yeah,
if I wouldn't been bold enough to go with 11 without the options.
yeah. Well, that's why I gave you the options.
I would have gone
And I
probably
was,
around 8 or something, I reckon. But
yeah, and I wasn't sure how to weight them because I thought it'd be like, well, what are ways that I can get 11 in there? It's like 9,
mhm.
10, 11, 12, 7, 11, 15, 19. I thought I might throw you off based on your your question about the percentage of population that lives in Britain by giving making
Ah,
you
right.
go like trend higher. But you were wise to me. You went with the sane number of 11. So, yeah, well
Oof,
done. I think that's
goodness.
a perfect score.
It is.
Yeah. 5 out of
Not
5.
not what I expected.
Well done.
Um, I'll go for sports. Feels weird saying it with the. Oh yeah, Snuff was. Snuff sent me a message after that podcast to say it's so weird how you say sport and we say sports, but then for mathematics or math, you change it. We keep
Yeah,
the
we
S and you drop
yeah,
the S.
and we drop it. Yeah, that's funny. I haven't thought about that before.
So there you go. I think it must be a different. I guess it must be a different. Well, it must be to do with the fact that sport can be countable or uncountable, whereas maths is always going to be. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. There'll
Yeah, I
be a
couldn't
reason hidden in there
I
somewhere.
couldn't even guess, but I'm sure there's a reason. There's usually a reason. It's not always good, but there's usually a reason.
But we'll go with sports.
All right, here we go. First question. The United States is going to be hosting the Olympic Games again soon in
Hmm.
2028 and 2036.
Oh.
Name one of the 6 United States cities that has hosted the Olympic Games in the past.
Oh. Well, I'll go with the one that I think is going to host in 2028 because I know it's hosted it before. I think, unless
Correct.
I'm mixing this
Yep.
up. I think L.A., Los Angeles.
Yes, Los Angeles, California is one of the cities. And let's see. This is a snuff question and answer.
Hmm.
And he gave me the dates. Los Angeles has hosted the Olympics in 1932, 1984, and will again in 2028.
Right, 1984. Okay.
So there you go. Doing well so
Nice.
far. Next question. Baseball is often called America's pastime in light of its enduring popularity here. In baseball, what is it called when a ball is batted high up in the air without going very far forward? Which, unfortunately for the batter, makes the ball easy to catch.
Right. Um. Uh. Now that did not come up in the live stream last night.
Ooh.
That'd been very helpful, Snuff, if you'd told me that during the live stream.
No unfair advantage. Well, he had the advantage of being the one who made up the question, so he could know to
That's
avoid
true.
it.
That is very true. He knew I didn't want to give any information away. I have no idea. I don't think it'd be as simple as just calling it a mishit, but I'll just say mishit. But I don't know what the term is.
Okay, the correct term is fly ball.
Ah,
Also, a high fly ball or a pop fly or something along those lines.
that that means nothing to me.
Okay. Feel like I feel like baseball is like cricket for for me.
Yeah.
It's this strange sport that I know they play over there, but I don't know anything about.
You knew it was runs and overs and wicket or whatever the words were. I got
And
you to.
yeah, I recognize wicket. Yeah, I got the question about it right, but I couldn't tell you what any of those things actually meant. All right. Next question. Many Americans love the League of Dracula tournament for Fury of Dracula, which this year will culminate with a knockout tournament. This question is worded weirdly, but there's an even more popular knockout style sports tournament, believe it or not, nicknamed March Madness, in which 68 American colleges and universities compete each year, and Americans commonly fill out brackets to guess which teams will win each game and advance. What sport is played in this March Madness tournament?
Uh, well, I haven't heard of March Madness, or again, if I have, it hasn't sunk in.
Okay.
But since you're referring to like colleges in the
Yes.
states, I know the
Mm-hmm.
big college sport is what you would call football, American football. So I'm just gonna make just an intuitive guess that it's American
Mm-hmm.
football, but I don't know if it is.
Unfortunately, you are correct that probably the king of American college sports is football, but in this particular case, March Madness is related to basketball,
Nah, okay,
which is another fairly big college sport. It gets a lot of there's a lot of attention that gets paid to local college teams.
I see.
Yeah,
Okay,
but
very good.
oh well, oh well.
Oh
Speaking
well.
of football, though, the most widely viewed sport in the USA is football, which folks from other parts of the world sometimes refer to as American football or gridiron football. Strange people. uh, in football, what is the generic term for the player who leads a team's offense, responsible for passing the ball to teammates in order to advance the ball down the field?
um, the only player that I can name from an American football team, and I've also heard it today because there was a couple on YouTube I was watching, and they were talking about playing board games, and the person who like controls and like dictates the play in a cooperative setting is called the quarterback. They're quarterbacking it, so I'm gonna just assume that's the quarterback.
You are correct.
Ooh,
Yeah,
okay.
it is the premier position in football, and I saw that question and I was like, I feel like he'll probably have heard of quarterback. So I'm glad that one was accurate. Okay, one more.
hmm
What does it mean if an American tells someone to stop Monday morning quarterbacking? Talked about quarterbacks, and you're right. It does tend to get used in that sense of like he's the one who's making the calls, who's sort of
Right.
dictating the pace of the game. So that's what quarterbacking as a verb is generally means. But what is Monday morning quarterbacking?
I assume it's not referring to sport. It's is a sport terminology that's used in other
More
contexts.
widely, yes.
I'm gonna again. I've never heard of it. No idea.
Hmm.
Especially since the word quarterback is not something that is in British English vocabulary. There's not is not a phrase that we would use.
Hmm.
I'm going to make the assumption to do with things with Monday morning, and the other person who might be quarterbacking might be your boss. So I'm assuming it's maybe some sort of work related thing. Um, Something to do with maybe Monday morning meetings, perhaps. but I don't know.
Mm.
I don't know
I
what
like
the phrase means.
I like your reasoning. However, that is not the particular meaning of the phrase.
Okay.
It means stop being overly critical of someone else based on hindsight. That's the important thing. The quarterback
Uh,
makes lots of split-second decisions on the football field about what to do with the ball each play. Football is usually played on Saturday for college football or Sunday for professional football in the United States.
ah,
Someone who is Monday
right.
morning quarterbacking, metaphorically, is criticizing split-second decisions with the advantage of knowing how the entire game, so to speak, played out the day or two before.
Right, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, I like that. That's kind of cool.
Yep.
That's neat. I should
So
have I should have gone back to the sport analogy and tried to work out from there. Like
yeah, you were
the Monday
really,
was important.
really
Like
close. Yeah, I liked you almost logicked it out, but you just kind of swerved into the work
yeah,
situation a little bit
bit
too
too
much at the
quickly.
last minute. Yeah.
Right, for my own good. I should have stopped a bit. But that's good. That's obviously there's an expression um that we would yeah we don't have at all just because the word quarterback is not really something in our vocabulary. We would think of it a lot more literally. If you do, there are some people who play American football in the UK, so then they would use the word, but they as the position.
Hmm.
It was really strange for me hearing that couple on YouTube say, "Oh yeah, I was like quarterbacking during pandemic."
Uh,
I understood what they meant, but it wasn't a phrase that was kind of it didn't resonate with me quickly. I had to stop to think about what it was they were referring to, and then from context, I got the meaning.
right.
That's okay. Good to know.
Yeah, it's all right. You still did okay. Not
What
your
was that?
best showing, but 2 points out of five. So you're on
I'll
the
take
board.
it. I'll take
Yeah.
it. So we've got now place food slang in general.
Yes.
Uh, we'll do the place food slang, and then we'll leave general to last, shall we?
All right. Sounds fun. There are 5 points. I haven't been diligent about calling those out all the time. But
That's
there
okay.
are
Don't
five
worry.
points in place food slang.
Okay.
So I'm going to present these for the most part in alphabetical order, and you can tell me which one you think is which. We have Love Ladies, Shotgun, and Sloppy Joe.
Love ladies.
Mm-hmm.
Shotgun. Sloppy Joe.
Correct. Those are the terms.
Okay. I've never heard of love ladies, but I think because I think I know what the other two mean, so I can work it out that way. Um,
Okay.
shotgun, I think, is the slang. It's when you say, "Oh, like shotgun," I like you take the front seat of the car or something. Normally, when
Okay.
you're fighting with your brother and sister, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then sloppy Joe is food, and now I'm trying to work out what type of food it is. Is it like really sloppy mashed potato?
Mm.
I think it's food based though. I think sloppy Joe is food based. So then by that, did I assume Love Ladies is the place? But I have no idea what it is. I've never heard of it.
You are correct. You don't need to know what all they are. I'm impressed you knew what shotgun was. But yeah, you're totally right. And yeah, Love Ladies is a beachside community in New Jersey. Shotgun is indeed a slang term, meaning to ride in the front passenger seat of a car. And Sloppy Joe is a kind of sandwich. It's sort of like hamburger, ground hamburger, and ketchup, well, a ketchup-based sauce. It's not pure ketchup. That forms sort of the main filling, and then you put that all onto a sandwich bun.
Oh, neat. Okay.
Hmm.
Okie dokie.
All right. So yeah, one question, 1 point. Doing great so far. Next trio here:
Hmm.
catawampus, collards, and cowpens.
Okay, you got to repeat them.
Yep. Catawampus. This one's spelled kind of weird. I don't know if you're writing these down. Cattywampus. Catawampus.
Catawampus. Okay.
Yep. Collards and cowpens.
Right. Okay. I think I've never heard of. Let's see if I can pronounce it right. Collards. How I'd pronounce it as collards. I don't know if that's the right
Mm-hmm.
pronunciation. Probably not. But I've heard of collard greens, which is
Mm-hmm.
a thing from the south, which is isn't it like kale kind of like vegetable, which is then fried, I think. So I think that's the food. I'd assume that's what that is. And then cattywampus, I think, is the slang. Isn't it isn't like the equivalent of codswallop? Like nonsense? I think. So then cowpens must be the place. But then again, I've never heard of cowpens. So that's my
You
guess.
are once again correct. Well deduced. So catawampus is a slang term. I have heard it used to mean like nonsense, but the more, I guess, more traditional slang term meaning is awkward, disorderly, or askew. Kind of like skew with. Catawampus is like
Ah.
the U.S. regional equivalent, um, and sometimes you like derived from catawampus in my part of the country, we would say like catty corner to be like it's not straight on, it's on a sort of weird skewed corner, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So, okay. And then collards, you are 100% correct, comes from collard greens, a leafy vegetable dish common in southeastern American cuisine, usually mixed with small chunks of fatty meat like pork. And
Okay.
Cowpens is a town in South Carolina famous for a really interesting American Revolutionary War battle that took place there, in which the Americans prevailed using a novel feigned retreat strategy. That
Ooh.
was news to me because this is another snuff special.
Nice. I like it.
So yeah, doing great, 2 for 2. Okay, this next one, a little bit of a theme. These are all you're going to hear a bunch of names, but they have additional meanings. I'm not interested in hearing that they're all names.
Okay.
First one is Arnold Palmer. Second one is Jim Hogg. And the third one is John Hancock.
What was it? John Hancock, did you say?
Yes, John Hancock.
Oh, man.
And you don't have to know what they are, as long as you can categorize them correctly.
Hmm. Okay. I don't know.
Okay.
Again, I can try and do some sort of deduction or use my intuition.
Mm-hmm.
Given that hog is kind of an equivalent word for pig, I'm just gonna
Mm-hmm.
guess that's the food, but I don't know if it is.
Okay.
But I'm just gonna guess that it is.
Okay.
And then John Hancock, I think I've heard of. Isn't it some sort of tool? Is it a slang word for a tool? I'm going to say that's the slang. So then that means then Arnold Palmer must be the place, but that doesn't make sense. There can't be a place called Arnold Palmer. That makes no
Hmm.
sense at all, does it? Uh, Problem is none of them feel like places. That's the issue. So maybe
Yeah,
Arnold
this
Palmer
one's
is the slang, but then which one's the place? I wouldn't say that Jim Hogg or John Hancock are places either.
yeah, this
And
one's
then
tricky.
and then what is an Arnold Palmer?
Yep, that's the question. I'll let you know. I would not guess the place name out of these. I would have to use process of elimination.
Right. It has to be the one that's left over. But then if I'm saying that the food is Jim Hogg, and I think John Hancock, I think that's some sort of tool. I think it is. It's something like I've heard of that before,
Mm-hmm.
but now I can't remember what it is. But then that means that Arnold Palmer's the place, which doesn't. That really doesn't sit well in my brain.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe Jim Hogg is the place, and then Arnold Palmer is the food. But then I can't even imagine what food Arnold Palmer is.
Mm.
Okay, I'll go with that. I'll say that Arnold Palmer's the food, Jim Hogg is the place, and John Hancock is the slang. But maybe it's completely wrong. Don't know anymore.
You've worked it out. Well done.
You have to do some explaining, Aruk, because I haven't got a clue what any of this means.
Yeah, okay. I feel like maybe I threw you off if you haven't heard of this before. Arnold Palmer is strictly speaking not a food, it is a drink. Uh, so Arnold
Ah,
Palmer is a drink that is half iced tea and half lemonade. Uh,
okay.
Jim Hogg is the name of a county in Texas, and John Hancock is slang, but it's not for a tool. It's a slang term for a person's signature, derived from the fact that a
Oh,
historical individual named John Hancock
yeah,
um, is by far the largest and most prominent signature on the Declaration of Independence.
yeah. I have
There's a
absolutely heard that before. Yeah,
yeah,
you're absolutely
there's an
right.
apocryphal
Yeah.
story that he said he wanted the signature to be so big that King George could read it without wearing his spectacles.
Oh wow.
Yep.
Very bold, very brazen. I love it. Now I have heard of the John Hancock. Yeah, that's come up before. I think maybe on QI, which is I don't know if you've known that. That's a British sort of
Yes, the quiz
comedy
show.
information quiz show, right?
I've not listened to it, but you sent me that trivia about Bob the Builder from it, and so
Oh
I
yeah,
remembered it.
that's from their Facebook. Yeah, yeah. I have heard of that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Now you've said it, it popped into my brain. Yes, of course. I didn't know the
Nice.
others. An Arnold Palmer being a drink. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Oh, I'm glad I changed.
Yeah.
Because I was just thinking hog has to be food, surely. But then, well, how does Arnold Palmer be a place? That's impossible.
Yep. Good
Okay.
reasoning. You had
Whew.
the intuition to know that Arnold Palmer just could not be a place name.
No.
I'm impressed.
Why? So my question is, why is the drink named Because I know he was a golfer, right?
I'm pretty sure he was a golfer, and that's what he would always order.
Ah, okay. So it became his signature thing, and then they just named the drink after him. Got it.
Yes.
Okay.
Hmm.
Cool. That works.
Okay. Well, you're doing great in this category so far. The next one is pig in a blanket, rain check, and truth or consequences.
Pig in a blanket.
Hmm.
Um. Well, rain check
Yep.
and truth and
Truth or
consequence.
consequences.
Okay. Rain check is the slang. If you rain check something means we're gonna have to postpone this and we'll see if we'll do that activity later or something. Like you're gonna check the weather. Oh, it's gonna be raining soon, so but maybe later it might not. So we'll do the thing later, maybe.
Hmm.
Now, pig in a blanket, I assume, is the same thing as pigs in blanket. Pigs in blankets, which is a Christmas thing that we have in the UK, where it's little sausages wrapped in bacon.
Okay.
So I am gonna make the assumption that is the food, and then truth or consequences, which I have heard of, I assume is the place, and now I will not know where the place is, but that has come up before on random things I've read or watched online. I don't know where it
Yeah,
is. I
that
don't know
makes
why it's
sense.
important, but that's my answer. Pig and blanket is
Cool.
food. Rain check is slang. Truth or consequences is place.
You are correct. Some slight details here.
Okay.
Pig in a blanket is, in American usage, refers to a small hot dog baked into a roll, as opposed to wrapped in bacon. Um,
Oh. Okay. And you don't eat them at
yeah.
Christmas, I assume.
Sometimes we do. I most commonly eat them around Christmas time, but they're not like widely associated with the holiday, I don't think.
Interesting. Okay, for us, it's an additional thing to the main Christmas roast dinner. Is you have this thing called pigs in blankets.
Interesting.
Yeah. Oh,
They're so close and yet
so
so
it's
different.
quite
Yeah.
different, very different. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, to rain check something, or to take a rain check is to politely decline an invitation or cancel while implying that you might reschedule. Apparently,
yeah.
this is a snuff special. It comes from old baseball games where ticket holders whose game was canceled due to rain were given a rain check to come to a later game instead.
Because of the your spelling of check is different to ours. I would have made the connection that way.
Yep,
Cool. Okay.
yep. And then Truth or Consequences is a small city in New Mexico, called such after the city of Hot Springs renamed itself in order to win a 1950s contest put on by the Truth or Consequences radio game show.
Wow. Nice.
So yeah, yeah, you're doing good. 4 out of 4.
I'll take it.
Uh, all right, and then this last one is my humble contribution. These are all number themed.
Oh, okay.
So your first one in I went in ascending order: 86, 96, 100 grand.
Okay. I've heard of 86, but it's not. Oh, again, this is a thing. As far as I'm aware, we don't say in UK. It's something I learned from Gordon Ramsay's Kitchen Nightmares. 86
Mm-hmm.
is the process where you remove food from like a food item from the menu for whatever reason,
Mm-hmm.
because you run out of ingredients or you don't want to cook it anymore, whatever. So I assume you're counting that as slang and not the food, I assume. Um, uh, it's also the fact you said 100 grand and not 100,000.
Yep,
That's a very different distinction.
it
Oh, that's
is.
quite a distinction.
Yep.
Well, 100 grand is 100,000 normally for money, but
Mm-hmm.
then would that maybe mean that there is a place called 100 grand?
Mm.
I don't know if I can ask this question. You can refuse to answer if you want. Is the 100 written as words or as a number?
100 is a number, and then grand is a like written out as a word.
Interesting. Okay, that was probably not the answer I was
96,
expecting. If you
96 is also written out as words.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yep.
Huh. Because if you told me that the 100 bit was written out in letters, I would have probably said that's the place. But now you said 96 is written as words as well. That has thrown me off
Yep.
now.
Uh-oh.
I think my answer for 86 is correct, but I can't work out in my head where that would categorize it as food that now no longer exists on a menu. So it's food or it's slang for like an
I'll
order
tell
to
you
take things off
because
the menu.
you're 100% correct on the meaning, and I don't want this to be what trips you up.
Yep.
You are categorizing it as slang is exactly what I was doing.
Okay, that's all right then.
Yep.
I assumed that was going to be the case.
Hmm.
Um, food or place between 96 and 100 grand. I am going to just make an assumption. I don't think it's right. It might not be right, but I'm going to make the assumption that if a place is going to have the name, like a number, it'll have to be
Hmm.
written out in words and not with the literal 100.
Hmm.
So I'm going to assume that 96 is the place and then 100 grand is the food. I don't know what food that would be. Also, I don't know what 96 would be as food either. I'm going to make that answer, but I have no idea what they mean. So,
You are
okay.
correct. You
Whew,
have reasoned all of these out.
goodness.
I'm
so
very
what
impressed.
So what is 96 and 100 grand then?
All right. So 86 you knew. It actually so I didn't know about like a formal term for phasing out a food from a menu. I know it as just a general slang for not offering something anymore. It apparently dates back to 1930s soda counter slang. People think it's disputed, but the common explanation I found online was that people chose 86 as slang because it rhymes with nix, which means to like get rid of.
Oh,
96 is a city in South Carolina. This is another one where the reason for its name is disputed, but the most common explanation is that the town was located 96 miles from the lower Cherokee Indian town of Kiowa. And apologies if I pronounced any of those, um, Native American terms incorrectly.
okay. Cool. I
And then
guess. I
100 grand,
uh-huh.
yeah, 100 grand is a candy bar.
Ah. Okay. And
Yep.
hasn't made it across the pond, so I would never
Nope.
heard of it. Never heard of it.
Yep, it's an American candy bar. I apparently it was put out by Nestle. So, because when I was doing the research for it, I was like, "Uh-oh, Nestle's a Swiss brand. Like, what am I going to do if this isn't American? I don't know anything else that could count as food that would be a number." And I like the number theme. And I looked it up, and it's occasionally been introduced into like a couple other markets in history, but it's primarily like U.S. based. And so, as far as I know, it's an American candy, and it hasn't really gone anywhere else. It's um, it used to be called rather than 100 grand. It used to be just the 100,000 bar, the one hundred
I'm
thousand dollar bar or whatever. Yeah, but they
I'm literally just looking at it on Wikipedia. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
there you go. They changed the name to 100 grand. Yeah.
Goodness. Nope. That if it is something that was well, I was gonna say if it is something that was available, well, is available in the UK, it would have been in the past. I've never seen that at all. I've never seen it come
Hmm.
up on when I've seen like comparisons between confectionery and stuff between the UK and America. I've never heard of it.
Yeah. I was looking it up because apparently there are different like tiers of candy bars, and which I'd never heard of before. And apparently, like there's the like number one tier, which is like everyone's always got this candy out like all the time. You can go to the store and find it. And then there's other candy that's basically just around to be trick or treating fodder for Halloween. And
Ah.
100 grand is sort of one of those where it's like Mr. Good Bar, right? That there's a handful of different candy bars and candies that are just like, oh yeah, you're like in this one specific situation and it's not always available, but when it's around, you can get it and maybe disappointed that you got 100 grand instead of a Snickers, you know?
It's one of the when you open up the trick or treat bag and you see the 100 grand in there, you're like, oh.
Yeah, exactly.
Snickers we do have in the UK though.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. Snickers is tier one candy bar.
There you go.
I couldn't believe they had different tiers of candy. I was like, oh, I guess that makes sense.
That's
You
so
don't
subjective
see
though.
everything everywhere all the time. Yeah.
Hmm. But especially if it's based on availability and not quality necessarily, right?
Right.
Um,
Yeah. I remember
dro-
liking 100 grand bars, but I haven't had them in a long time.
oh, you have to maybe get one and see if you still enjoy it as much or it's just purely nostalgic.
Yeah, I'll have to do some research. But yeah, so perfect score. Well done. Are you ready to move on to the final category of general trivia?
Let's go for it.
Okay.
And on a high, hopefully. We'll see.
Hopefully. Yeah, this was just sort of a catch-all category that I put together at the end. There are 10 points available to you here.
Oh, goodness. Okay. Let's see.
First question. What is the U.S. national bird?
Again, this is a question that I thought you were going to ask me.
Mm-hmm.
It is the eagle, and you'll want the particular type of eagle.
Yeah.
The golden eagle?
Ooh.
No.
No, it is the
Oh,
American
bald
bald
eagle.
eagle. Okay.
Ah,
You got
damn.
it before I said it. I'll give you the point.
Oh, only because you said, I was like, oh no, I picked the wrong one.
You picked the wrong one. Yep.
Bald eagle.
Yeah.
Ah, saw that on jet lag. I should have known that. Damn. Okay.
I'll give you the point anyway. I'll be
Very
forgiving.
generous. Very generous quizmaster.
That's me. Okay, next question. The Statue of Liberty is a famous symbol of the United States, but it was provided as a gift from another country. Which one was it?
France.
That is correct.
I hope I got.
Okay.
I really hope that was the correct answer because that was normally my go-to thing when I was teaching the passive voice
Ah,
in English class. I used to say that the Statue of Liberty was gifted by France, right? So if I got that wrong, I've been misleading students all these years.
for years. Yeah. I found out about something like that I was doing for teaching English in Japan, but I can't remember what it was. I think it might have been like the Amazon versus the Nile, as opposed to like which one is the longest river.
Ah,
I was like,
right.
oops. Well, the trivia wasn't the point, so
Yeah, it's the language, right? But still.
yeah. Okay. Anyway, next question. Which United States state is also known as the Sunshine State?
Ah.
I've only put in one of these state nicknames, but they all have them. I figured this one you might have heard of.
Oh no.
Maybe not.
I have heard of the Sunshine State, and now I'm trying to work out which one it is. I have heard of it,
Mm.
and that is going to kill me when you say it. Is it Florida?
It is. You are correct.
Oh, God, that got dug out from the back of my brain.
Well done. Okay. Which mountain range runs across the eastern part of the United States?
That came up in the quiz I wrote for you because of oh wait, hang on, Eastern United States.
Yes, it did come up
Uh,
in the quiz you wrote for me.
the Appalachians.
Correct. That's why I wanted to return the favor.
Thank you.
Next question. Which mountain range runs across the western part of the United States?
The Rockies.
You are correct. The Rocky Mountains. Which celebration still held Annually today in New Orleans began in Mobile, the capital of the New France colony in Louisiana, in early 1703.
Oh,
Big New Orleans holiday, basically.
yeah. It's not coming to my brain right now. Oh, is it just no? Is it just called no? It has got more. Isn't it just not called just like the carnival? Or am I mixing up with something else?
They might refer to it colloquially as the carnival, but that's not the answer I'm looking for. The answer I'm looking for is in French, which is why
Oh,
I put in that bit about the French part of the
no chance.
colony. Okay.
I haven't got a
All right.
clue.
The answer was Mardi Gras.
Oh, yes, I have heard of it. Oh man, yeah, that's a silly point to go away. Of course, it's the Mardi Gras. Oh no. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Who is known for inventing the lightning rod after earlier in the year proving that lightning was electricity by flying a kite in a thunderstorm?
Oh. Uh, oh dear. More info that I've absorbed, and then it just gone one in one ear, one out the other.
Yep.
Oh. So again, I'm gonna have to try, since I don't know the answer, I'm gonna have to do a bit of deductive work in my head and try and work out famous scientists or engineers related with electricity and try and work out which one it would be.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I've got a couple in my head.
Fairly early in American history.
I've got two names. One of them I don't know if they were even American or not.
Okay.
Both of them I don't know if they're American or not. They might have been British,
Hmm.
but based upon I might pick the name that is more sort of Anglo sounding.
Okay.
Do I really want to go with that? Oh no, is it him? Oh no, I'm in agony over here. I can't remember. It's gonna really hurt me when you tell me the answer.
Oh no.
If I get it wrong, can I say the second name? Not that I expect you to give me the point. You can mark me as
Yes.
zero, but just for my own
Yes.
sake.
If you get it right, yeah, whichever one you pick, if you tell me the other one, go at, like, I won't give you a point because I was maybe overly generous earlier, but I will
Um,
be interested to hear the answer.
okay, so I'll go with the slightly like bolder one first and see, is it Tesla?
It is not Tesla.
Okay, so the other name I got in my head is Watt.
It is not Watt. It is
Okay.
Benjamin Franklin.
Oh, nope.
Yep, Benjamin Franklin. If
Wouldn't
you
have got
had
it.
said Joseph Priestley, you would have been sort of right because he witnessed the experiment. Another early name in electricity, but
Oh, nope.
he was
Nope, nope,
British.
nope.
But yep, Ben Franklin was the American and famous for working with electricity.
Okay, no. I heard of him, but I wouldn't have got it. So that's fine.
Okay, cool. Which U.S. state has the largest population?
Okay, so there are three states that I'm thinking of.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna assume that based upon its size as well, not just it's got a lot of population centers, but also because it's a very big state.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna assume it's California.
You are correct.
Whew,
California.
okay.
I thought you might guess Texas.
It was between California, Texas, and New York. But I was like, well, New York probably once you exclude New York from the calculation, it probably won't be
Yeah.
that much. And then I know Texas is very big, but I just
Mm-hmm.
assumed California had bigger cities, so I just went for that.
Yep. It was California. That's right. Texas is pretty close, if I remember correctly. When I looked it up, it was fairly similar, but California is the most populous state.
I also tried to use
Uh,
electoral college knowledge. I think it's isn't it the one that has the
ah,
most electoral college like votes?
yes.
So I
Yeah,
had to
it
go
has the
with
most
that.
votes in the electoral college as a result. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Okay. Next question. Which United States, state, I don't know. I guess I could just say which state has the most land?
Uh, Alaska.
Correct. Okay. And then the last one. On June 17th, 2021, the U.S. created its first new federal holiday since Martin Luther King Jr. Day in 1986. Celebrated annually on June 19th, what is the name of this holiday?
June 19th of every year, but it's only been in the last 4 years.
That refers to official recognition. It's been informally celebrated for a long time,
Oh.
which might be a clue.
Hmm.
I wasn't sure if you'd seen this one in the news.
No, seemingly not. So I'm going to try and work out. That's interesting. So it's not recent events that have forced it. It's something that came in earlier. So it can't be Labor Day because that's earlier in the year. And I think then
Say
can't.
recent events maybe gave it a bit of a push
Um,
towards federal recognition.
2021 was during pandemic.
Yep.
Um, trying to think is there anything related to that, which would be the clue.
Mm.
Probably not, because quite late into this, not something that was celebrated quite informally, but for quite a long time beforehand.
Yes.
Uh, I'm trying to. I'm trying to think of like important things in like American history that you could potentially be trying to celebrate.
Mm-hmm.
But then again,
I'll give you the clue
a
that
lot
it's
of
related to the U.S. Civil War. So when I say it goes back a long time, it's the mid 1860s, informally.
right. Nah, nothing's coming to mind. I can't think because I'm trying to think like, is June important?
It
Why?
is part of the name.
No, I don't know what this is. This hasn't come across my
Okay. Yeah, it's
things.
sort of
What's
one
that?
of those you know it or you don't questions, which is why I put it in trivia. The answer is Juneteenth.
Okay, and what does
Officially
that?
known officially known as Juneteenth National Independence Day. It's celebrated to commemorate the ending of slavery in the United States.
Oh,
The holiday's name is a portmanteau of the words June and 19th, as it was on June 19th, 1865, when Major General Gordon Granger ordered the enforcement of the Emancipation Proclamation in Texas at the end of the American Civil War.
I see. So my question would be, why has it only become an official holiday in the last 4 years?
Because acknowledging the legacy of slavery in the United States is not something that lots of people like to do.
Okay, so it took them quite a while to
Yeah,
recognize it.
they dragged their feet. And there's sort of
Interesting.
been when I said it was sort of inspired by recent events, like they gave it a push. There's sort of been an outpouring of support for the Black Lives Matter movement, for example.
Oh,
Of
sure. Right.
yeah, so of different rights and celebrating African American history in the U.S. So
Right.
that's what I think helped give it a push.
Okay. Oh, well. Nice. Again, I didn't know that was
Oh
a thing. But very
yeah,
good.
still that's not bad. I figured first new federal holiday in
Yeah.
what was that since 1986, so like 30 something years. That's that I thought that might be in a headline, but I guess not.
Yeah, 35 years. Nope. I mean, it might have been, but I must have missed it. I was even
Yeah.
trying to think when Black Lives Matter was that pre-pandemic, or is my timeline being warped now by the fact that pandemic's kind of shrunk everything that's happened?
Yeah, I think it was just before. I think they sort of overlapped for a little while.
Right. It probably makes sense. 'Cause it hasn't been since, really. But, well, maybe during the pandemic, it might have continued with certain things, but it would have been halted um, because of the pandemic. I don't think anything's like, at least in the UK anyway. When they had all the marches in America, we had it also in the UK as well. Um, a lot of statues got torn down of statues that commemorated slave owners and things got torn down. But I
Yeah,
think that must be before pandemic. But yeah, but it makes
I
sense
think
then,
so. Yeah,
especially with a change of regime in the states as well and things.
right.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense based on the timing.
Hmm.
Cool.
Okay, well, you've gotten 7 out of 10 points in trivia, and that gives you a total of 38 points out of 50.
I'll take it. I'll take it and run away with it. Thank you for that.
So once again, yeah, you have crushed your previous score or your estimated score
That's just
of
that.
20.
Just set the bar really low, and then you'll be overjoyed when you surpass it. We both
Exactly.
went, both went with the same strategy.
Yeah, 76 out of 100. I think that's basically what I scored. I think we've like mirrored one another's
Yeah,
scores here.
more or
So I
less.
think that shows our quizzes were pretty much in parity. So
Yeah.
I'll take that as a mark in favor of Snuffleupagus and I.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, a good job, both of you, on the quiz. I think, yeah, it's just as you said, same with the one I wrote for you. We tried to make them as friendly for the other person as possible, but we also had to throw in some difficult stuff as well. Um,
Right.
but oh, neat. Okay, I'm happy with that. I could have gone way
Yeah.
worse.
Yeah, I'm happy with that too. That couldn't have, like, as far as I'm concerned, that could hardly have turned out better. It's
Mhm,
just the fact that we wound up with basically the same score.
mhm.
Ah, that was fun.
Absolutely. Well, thank
I'm
you.
I'm
Uh,
so I'm so glad that Snuff was able to think of so many of those questions for me because it would have taken me another month.
No. Well, thank you, Snuff. I hope Snuff's listening to this and then is happy
I hope so. I
hearing
hope I
his
didn't put him off
questions
with the
out.
first half hour talking about driving.
Yeah, I know. He's like, oh, they didn't get to the quiz then. I'll have to put it in the. We're going to have to think of now for the British one, we came up with daffodils and no dragons and daffodils.
Yes.
So what on
Yeah, I
earth
forget
we
which. Yeah, I forget which order it was, but yeah.
what on earth?
What could this one be? Yeah. Oh, I don't know. Was there anything that like really stuck out to you?
Um, I don't know really. There wasn't really like a really good sort of catchphrase like we did from the previous one.
No, we
Um,
didn't. We didn't get a catchphrase, did we? That's too
n-
bad.
no.
Kind of want to mirror the sort of thing and thing phrasing is where my mind is
Ye-
right now.
Well, the only thing that I've written down, which is kind of because the place name is just so cool, is truthful consequences. It's not an and thing.
Ah, okay.
It's not quite the same though. Um,
Yeah.
oh well, we can put a pin in it if we think of something. I'll definitely call it U.S. cultural quiz. if
Yeah.
we
Yeah,
think of
yeah.
something,
Like cuz
we
that
could.
was that was sort of the main title of the last one too. So,
Mhm.
we can always try and come up with something in between, but it's unfortunate that you don't like there's not a name that just presents itself because that's those are the best names, the ones that arise naturally.
Right, right.
But,
Have you?
if it doesn't happen, you can't force it.
Exactly. I was gonna say, since the. I mean, I know you've been very busy, but have you done any more investigating about the discovery of whales? Because you're overjoyed after that cultural quiz that
I know.
lots of things about
I
whales
was
you
so
really loved.
excited about that. Yeah. No, I have not looked into it further. I still intend to. It's just that I've had a lot going on. I've had to like
Yeah.
I've been moving stuff. I've been um, you know, babysitting. I've been working. I've been trying to get through a lot of stuff. I had translation born in the early part of the month was a struggle. So yeah, got a lot going on. But I do
That's okay.
intend to get back to it. I may go slow, but I will get to it eventually. It's sort of my motto.
That's okay.
I do the same thing with the Fury of Dracula games. I may go slow, but I'll get there eventually. I'll watch them all.
I do notice like when I always know when you've got a busy workload because the number of comments from I always check the comments on the YouTube
Yeah.
Studio app, and when I see that Rook hasn't watched a video while I've been sleeping, it's like, okay, Rook's busy, and then suddenly there'll be this flurry of like 10 comments on 10 different videos.
Yep. It's like, oh, he's catching up now. Yeah.
Well, the good news from your part, given how well things are going for me, I will skip the first knockout round. So it means you've now by yourself a couple of weeks where I won't be
Oh,
publishing
nice.
any of my own gameplay. So you have a little bit of a respite.
That's right.
I could try and catch up. Yeah, don't worry. Wales will always be waiting there for you. Will always be there. So it's not
It
going
will.
anywhere. I don't think it's going anywhere. I hope not. That'd be
I
really
hope
awkward.
not.
If something now, some sort of political upheaval happens, then Wales cease to exist by the time the next podcast happens.
Oh,
um,
let's not have that happen.
no, absolutely not. No, the Welsh won't be happy with that if that's the case. So no, Wales will always be there. I mean, I've been just as bad. I mean, I've still got that pile of books behind me, and I haven't touched them. And when we had that conversation with Roscoe about books the other day, and I was like, oh no, I haven't read any. And he'd really
Yeah.
said it's like podcast homework for me to read a book. But yeah, just again,
Yeah.
time flying by way too quickly. I mean, I can't even
Yeah.
believe it's
It
22nd
gets
of
away from you.
October.
I
Yeah,
know. It just flies by. It's wild.
almost the end of the year already. It's pretty crazy. Um,
Yeah. One of the things, so I keep this little journal that I try to, like, I get behind on this sometimes, but I try to, at the end of every day, write a little entry. And it's a 5 year journal concept. And because of the way it works, it's like, it'll have one day of the year per page. So at the top of the page, it's like, October 21st or 22nd, because it's still the 21st for me. Uh,
mhm.
how late we're recording for Scottsford. Um, but it'll have at the top of the page October 21st, and then it'll have like year one. So like I started this last year, so it'd be 2023, and then that's the first fifth of the page, and then the second fifth of the page is 2022, and then the third fifth of the page
Ah,
is I think I went backwards in time, 2024, and the next one will be 2025, right?
right.
So that you get these like just relatively small subdivisions of a page with which to write about, I did this today. And so you generally fit like sort of one kind of idea for what was the main thing that happened to you during that day. And then you're like out the end of the segment. And as you get back to that same day the next year, you can look up at what you were doing exactly a year ago. And it's kind of fun. But
So,
one of the things that keeping this journal like did for me was it visualized progress through a year, because every day or every other day, because it's like 2 pages when it's open, every other day I turn a page and I get closer to the end of the book. So as I get closer and closer to the end of the journal, I can physically see the progress through the year as I make progress through the book. Like I'm getting to the end of a book as I read is also the same time I'm getting to the end of the year. It's like completely changed. Just that like tactile representation has like completely changed my appreciation for like what happens in a year,
right.
the
You
passage of
see.
time.
It's like the old as well, like the progress, the little calendars, but instead it's like the one where you have one page for each day that you rip off. You just see
Mm-hmm.
the stack just
Yeah,
decreasing throughout the year.
right. It gets
That
smaller and smaller. Yeah,
right. That makes sense now because you've put in like in our private chat.
right.
You've put comments before saying, "Oh yeah, a year ago this happened." I'm like, how the hell do you like remember that stuff? Do you go back through your old journals? It makes sense now if it's got
Yep.
the the same entry but from a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
Then you can see. Um,
Yeah, it really puts stuff in perspective, and it's crazy that the way that time like works in the mind,
yeah.
especially when you get to like to be like 30s and older, I'll say,
Hmm.
uh, because it all sort of blends together, and you get these moments where you're like, that thing that I still think of as new ended 10 years ago. Like we're coming up on the 10-year anniversary of Bloodborne, and it's like, as far as I'm concerned, that's still a new game. It's like last gen console, nobody cares about it anymore. But I'm like, no, it's new. It's a new big popular game. What do you mean? It came out 10 years ago.
I've
But like one of the things I've done is I've been able to like with the course of this thing is be like, oh yeah, that happened a year ago. And some of the stuff that I'll talk to other people about, like, oh, this happened a year ago, like I'll put in our private group chats, or like if I'm talking to my dad or something like that, it'd be like, yeah, a year ago today, this was happening, and everyone's just like, that was only a year ago, because you just sort of it fades into this jumbled mix of time that you keep in the back of your head. It's really weird.
Right. Well, my wife and I have had it quite that sort of that shock of reality of time and how long ago something was, because very very recently we celebrated our 1 year wedding anniversary, and it was just
Oh.
that strange moment where something like, oh my goodness, that was a year ago, and we were thinking about everything that's happened since. And if I remember it like yesterday, that's the thing. I
Mm-hmm.
can I remember all the events of that day. It's not something that's gone into the very, distant memory. Oh, I remember bits and pieces of that day. I remember the day perfectly from start to finish.
Right.
I just like, how can that be a year ago already? But we
Mm-hmm.
think about all the things that have happened like since, and we've
Mm-hmm.
had a really busy year of it. We're like, oh yeah. I mean, then the opposite end of the spectrum, that probably hasn't come up in our quiz. I don't know. Is Wallace and Gromit something that you know about in the States?
I've heard of the like the claymation films. I've
Yeah.
heard of them, but I have not seen any of them.
So in the Discord, I'll put like the like a GIF of them, so you recognize
Okay.
them.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So they're from like my childhood. The little short films that were made.
Mm-hmm.
The Grande Out, Wrong Trousers, and then Close Shave. I think maybe the first couple actually came out before I was born. Just.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I watched them when I was like 5 or 6 years old, and I had the one video and I watched them like over and over and over and over and over and over. They're like one of those things that just when the rest of my brain, once I get really really old and decrepit, and my brain is just turned to mush, the memory of
Mm-hmm.
Wallace and Gromit will stay in my brain because it's just ingrained in there. And now
Yeah.
they're releasing at Christmas, and I think in January on Netflix, a new feature film, and it's when
Oh, that's
people are
exciting.
right. It's very. I mean, for nostalgia's sake, I'm going to watch it because it'll be really good fun. And it's very, very British as well, just like the humor and everything in it. But
Hmm.
it's all the people who are commenting on like the trailer because they released the trailer very recently, and people writing comments saying, "I've been watching Wallace and Gromit for 3 decades," and they're like, "We've been waiting almost 20 years since the previous feature film." I was like,
Wow.
20 years? That's impossible. And I looked it up now, it's 2005. I'm like, oh my god, how is that
Wow.
20, almost 20 years ago? So yeah, yeah, time is. I mean, the pandemic made it worse because it feels like that sort of
Mm.
2 year kind of period just got really strangely compressed or really
Yeah.
elongated depending on how you dealt with the pandemic, and just time
Yeah.
didn't make
Agreed.
sense during that period.
Mm-hmm.
I need to go and try and find one of those diaries of yours. Maybe I should try and keep a journal because it will potentially, allow me to focus a bit more and also then to sort of reflect on things a bit better.
It's been a
um,
really interesting project. I would recommend it. Like the hardest part is keeping up with it. And
right.
for the first year when you don't have anything to look back on from a year ago and you're just building up your first like this is what happened today every day for a year, like it's a huge challenge. Once you've made it through like one circuit and you can then go back and every single day look up at what you were doing exactly a year ago to the day, then it starts to get fun.
I
But
can imagine.
up to that point, it's just like, okay, I have to settle in for like a year of work where I just make myself do this.
Hmm. Because I'm imagining if the page is it an A4, it must be to try and have five
Oh,
different
it's an
segments.
A5.
Oh, it's only A5, but you got like
A5. Yep.
five for each page. You got five little sections.
That's right. It's very small.
Okay,
They know it's hard to write stuff.
Okay, so you're not writing extremely long, profound
No,
analyses of the day then.
no, absolutely not. No, that's like the death of journaling is trying to be profound. Just write whatever happened to you that day, write boring stuff, write what's on your mind at the moment, write I can't think of what to write. It like that's the secret to getting into journaling is just writing whatever and not trying to be like I am a thoughtful person writing my thoughts in a diary. Let me expound upon the nature of the human fundamentals of the existence that arose during my day. Like you're asking for burnout.
Mhm.
and frustration. You got to write. Okay, and that's the nice thing about it, right? Because a fifth of an A5 page, like as you can visualize, I'm
Just
sure,
nothing.
is practically nothing.
Yeah.
And to be fair, I use a Japanese fine like fountain pen to write with. They write very small and thin, so I can fit like mm, like 9 lines, 9 to 10, if I want to like be verbose. But even that's not a huge amount of information.
Just capturing the snapshots, like the little highlights of the day. And then, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe I'll send you a picture in Discord, like not right now, but after the podcast is over, and we don't have to bother people with pictures they can't see.
That's cool. Yeah, something I should try and look for. Because maybe, yeah, especially then also if you're trying to look at very momentous moments like joining the Dracula community or like an event with the family or whatever, but also then just looking at the small little highlights in between, right? Um,
Yeah, yeah.
that'd
It's been
be
fun because I know like this is also the period now where 1 year ago today I was writing about my journey across Japan because it was the 10 year
right.
anniversary. And
Mm-hmm.
it's, so for a while, like however long it took me, about 3 months probably, because I did one day per day on the 10 year anniversary, and that's another project that probably never would have happened if I hadn't been doing that journal, because I was able to look back and be like, oh, it's been exactly 10 years now since I started walking Japan. Look at this date that I'm paying attention to now. Um, and now I can look back every year for as long as I'm in this journal for 5 years and be like, oh yes, however many years ago today, I was on this entry of blogging my walk across Japan. And it's just you get to sort of re-experience that stuff every year. It's kind of fun.
That's neat. Rather than all just
Yeah,
blowing into one. Yeah, I like that.
yeah. And
I so
sometimes you find anniversaries that you didn't even mean to write about, like the Fury of Dracula stuff. I never wrote down today is the day I joined the Fury of Dracula community on the Discord, right? But I wrote, you know, my Strider talked me into playing a game with these guys, and it was a lot of fun, right? And all of a sudden, I've got this personalized memorial like timestamp of when I came into the online Fury of Dracula community that I didn't even intend to write, and I just wrote it because it was you and Roscoe teaching me how to play the game.
mm-hmm. Back in the day.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. And then me writing a message on like YouTube comments probably. Oh, add me on Discord. We can chat.
right.
There'll be a point somewhere next year where you'll be like, it's the 1 year anniversary of going on to the Keeping You Company podcast.
Yeah, yeah. I'll probably have that because I'm pretty sure that's something I would have written down. It's
Mhm.
like, oh, Scott Sword wants me on the Keeping You Company podcast. I don't know if I'm up to it.
Well, um, thank you to both yourself and Snuff for putting together the quiz and putting me through my paces. It went a lot better than I expected. I don't think I could have done any better given the circumstances and also the fact I'm doing this late at night. The fact I remembered as much as I did is pretty miraculous, to
That's
be
true.
honest.
Yeah, you were playing with a bit of a disadvantage that I didn't have, which is it's late for you. So I'm
Uh,
all the more impressed.
Thank you. Well, thank you for putting it together. It was really good fun. It's really sort of recapturing a memory for me of doing quizzes. Like I used to do, like I said, like the pub quizzes at uni, and then during lockdown, um, by the time I was out in Spain, I was able to use Zoom to my
Hmm.
advantage and create a really nice, not long quiz for my best friends during lockdown. So yeah, it's been really nice to sort of rediscover that side.
Yeah, that's
It's been
great.
a long time since I've done it. So yeah,
Yeah,
thank you very
I
much,
wasn't.
Aruk. Good fun.
Yeah, and thank you, Snuff, as well. We keep saying it. I wasn't sure how these quiz episodes were going to go, but they turned out to be a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Now we've got to try and work out what we're doing now.
Yeah. Well, we've got no shortage of potential topics. The question is just sort of which one we want to tackle next.
Right, absolutely.
We might want to do abroad in Japan just because you're going to forget your questions at some point.
I'm gonna have to. Yeah, I've got. I as I was reading the book, I was writing down stuff in my phone, in the
Yeah,
notes app. So I'm not gonna remember. I'm gonna look it through the app and go, oh yeah, I wrote that down. And there might be some
yeah.
notes I don't even know what I'm talking about anymore. So we can definitely do that.
That's what I
And
mean.
then
That's what I mean. You're going to have to look at the notes and be like, if we wait too long, you're going to look at the notes and be like, what was I thinking when I wrote this down?
because I don't have the book anymore, so I've got no reference anymore. Because I
Oh,
couldn't take over everything. The fact I took over as many books as I did is kind of ridiculous. So yeah, I didn't take that book over with me. And then also the
okay.
fact I'm gonna have this B2 exam in Spanish fairly soon. We can maybe do like a language learning episode as well.
Yeah, that's definitely that was the one I suggested that we do instead of this one, and then Snuff gave me the quiz. So
So
yeah, but yeah, those are two probable topics that you'll see in the near future. We'll figure out exactly which one will be which soon.
absolutely. Yeah, we got no shortage of ideas. It's just a case of time to try to.
Hmm.
But the good thing is, because of Fear Draka tournament going quite well in my favor so far. Don't count any chickens before they've hatched now, but at least for now, I'm guaranteed a knockout space, but also to get a bye into the second round. So it means that kind of frees up a couple of weeks for me. So
Nice.
at the very least, I can maybe do some Stardew Valley recording, just
Oh,
to
that'd be good.
save up video footage. Um,
Hmm.
but if we have time to record another podcast, then we will. We'll definitely do one before the beginning of December, obviously.
Yep,
But if we can try and do more, we can. But time permitting, we'll do what we can.
time permitting.
Absolutely. So as we're watching the last takeoff from Edinburgh, everyone's going to be very used to that footage. Hopefully nobody who watches this is like got a fear of flying or anything, or maybe that might have been slightly disturbing footage for them. But
Hmm.
anything in particular you want to end on, Rook, before we say goodbye?
No, I'll just thank everybody for listening. I hope that you had, as always, as much fun as we did, and that this video kept you company.
Absolutely. Seconded. There's nothing more to add, I don't think. But yeah, take care, folks. At the very earliest, there'll be a video out at the beginning of December. What would be the first Sunday in December? The first. Oh wow, that's good
Oh,
timing, isn't it? So
yeah.
very earliest, the 1st of December. If there might be another one potentially, maybe around the 17th of November, perhaps. But keep an eye out on the channel. Just keep coming back on Sundays. I'll always do community posts as well. But if you see that there's no video out, sort of, by the end of Sunday, your time, that there isn't one, and there might be one the following week. But at the very latest, there'll be one out on the 1st of December. So yeah,
Yep, you can count on the first Sunday of every month. We'll be there to
absolutely,
keep you company.
as we will. Yeah, thank you, Rook. Very good chat. I'm gonna head off to bed if you don't mind. So
That's all.
it's
I
past
think you
half
read
one.
it. Yeah,
um, but always a good chat as always, and thank you to everybody
always.
who's been watching and listening. And yeah, feel free to leave any comments below. Feel free to put your scores in. Did you beat me? Probably. If you're from the States, you probably did. You probably thrashed
Yeah.
me.
Remember, if you put your score, to also include your region so that we can account for home field advantage.
Absolutely. And if you go back and do the British quiz, feel free to leave your comments in that video as well, and we'll see them. And yeah, we'll see you soon, folks. Take care, everybody. Have a good November until we see you in the next video. Bye, everybody.
Bye.